Oh, you ready?
Yeah.
Morning, welcome to council for, I think it's February 4th, 2025. Full agenda today, so we'll get right at it. We need a motion to accept the agenda, moved by Booker, second by Way. Any additions to the agenda? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed, that's carried. Just for the audience, there are two councillors on, appearing virtually. I don't know, did you consider that there? Okay. Councillor Pickard and, Councillor Yipman. So I kind of have to watch carefully because it's pretty small in this little box. Okay. Any declaration of community interest in the general nature thereof? Seeing none, move right on then to the minutes of the January 21st regular council meeting. Do I have a mover and a second? Moved by Gillis, second by Way. Any errors or omissions to the minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? I think that is yes, please. Okay. Before we go any further, you'll notice that we do have a different speaker in the middle, and we need to speak up so that you're heard. So if Pickard or Yipma can't hear me, just tell me to speak up, please.
We can't see you.
So that's your blessing for the day. Moving on to business arising from the minutes. Got a mover and a seconder. Moved by Gillis, second by Gersten. Any questions on that report? Anything you want to add, Julie?
No, nothing to add unless there's any questions.
Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, that's carried. Thank you. First Department, Frank Gross, Manager of Transportation Waste Management Service for Osprey County, and Sean Vandenhacker, do you want to guys come up to the table and we go through the post monitoring and swap for the first village?
Thank you, Mayor.
I'll let you or Sean take it away. So.
Thank you, Mayor. Good morning. Thanks for having us this morning. So yeah, as mentioned, we're here to present the findings of post monitoring speed reviews that we recently completed in Delmer, Beachville, and Verschoyle. These were following traffic calming measures that were previously implemented there. So post monitoring was conducted then to determine the effectiveness of those measures, and then we've made additional recommendations where warranted. So you have our presentation there, but I won't go through every slide, but just skip to some of the key points. Traffic calming measures in Delmer along Oxford Road 20 were implemented in June of 2022. The posted speed was adjusted from 50 kilometers per hour to 60 kilometers per hour through the village. Electronic speed feedback signs were installed at the east and west approaches, along with transverse pavement markings approaching the reduced speed zone through there. So post monitoring speed data was collected following those measures in 2022, 2023, and 2024. And the key findings at the east end, the outgoing 85th percentile speeds were reduced up to 14 kilometers per hour. Incoming speeds were reduced up to 19 kilometers per hour. So fairly positive results there. Unfortunately, not so positive at the west end. Speeds actually increased for incoming traffic up to 13 kilometers per hour. And for outgoing traffic increased up to 10 kilometers per hour. We did see though that the data collected by the speed feedback signs did show that traffic was slowing down as they're approaching the reduced speed zone. So we saw speeds below the 80 kilometers per hour as we were approaching the village. So as mentioned, we saw some positive results, but the speeds remain excessive within the village and at the west end. So we are recommending to install flexible center line delineators throughout the village in hopes of further reducing speeds through there. We have shared our speed data with police, and we'll continue to do that and continue to collect additional data through there. So I'll carry on through the other areas, and then we can answer questions following review. So in Beachville, Oxford Road 9, various measures were implemented at different times through Beachville. In December 2020, installed the speed feedback signs at the limits of the speed zone limit approaching the village. The existing speed transition or step down zones that were there were eliminated. They were shown that they weren't effective in reducing speeds. Then in June 2022, we adjusted the limit of the 50 kilometer zone at the west end, and we added sharp markings at the approaches, as well as centerline flexible delineators. And then in November 2023, the section east of Zoll line was designated as a community safety development area. Actually, so key findings in Beachville at the east end, 85th percentile speeds were reduced up to 11 kilometers per hour for incoming traffic. Outgoing traffic reduced up to 13 kilometers per hour. Within the village, we saw a reduction in speed, but still speeds are continue to be excessive through there. At the west end, we still see excessive speeds approaching the 50 kilometer zone, but then reduced as vehicles approach the speed feedback zone. So similar to Elmer, we're recommending installation of centerline delineators throughout the village, as well as additional posted speed signs, so the black and white regulatory signs. The section that's community safety zone and is eligible for automated speed enforcement. So the county is looking at a potential countywide automated speed enforcement program or photo radar. And again, that data was shared with the police and we continue to conduct monitoring through that. Verschoyle on Oxford Road 10. Last May 2024, flexible centerline delineators were installed at the village approaches, and the 60 kilometer speed zone was adjusted to align with the built up area. Key findings from the post monitoring speed data that was collected following implementation. We did see a reduction in operating speeds for outgoing traffic by as much as 12 kilometers per hour at the north end and 13 kilometers at the south end. We're not recommending any further measures at this time, but again, continue to monitor through there and continue to share data with police. So our next steps, we will be issuing mail outs to residents in the affected areas, as well as posting on the county's Speak Up Oxford page. And then reporting to county council with our recommendations at the March 12th county council meeting. And then if approved, we'll implement those additional measures as noted later this year. And then continue with post monitoring again as part of the program. Happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Okay, thanks very much, Frank. Any questions from council? Go ahead, Councilor Gill.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. Just a question about the delineators. I know they've changed over the last couple of years of what ones that have been installed. Is there ones that are better than others, or we found one that seems to take a little bit more abuse than some of the ones at the beginning? It seems that some of them, depending on where they are more of a target practice than a deterrent of speeding.
Yes, thank you. Through the mayor. Yeah, we did source a different supplier since the original ones that were installed in Beachville. So the ones that we've used in Patrol, for example, that they are a little more robust, a little more they can withstand a little more vehicle damage. In Patrol too, OPP did assist us with some of those signs were being intentionally damaged or vandalized. So OPP was able to support us there, and some of that vandalism has declined as a result of that.
Councilor Yip, you're next.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. My question was similar about the centerline delineators, especially in Verschoyle. I travel through there frequently, and it seemed like during the season last year, they were down more than they were up. I wonder if you could speak to that. And then second to that, if the delineators turn out to be a fairly costly item for the amount of damage that they sustain, has any thought been given to actually narrowing up the roadways by shrinking in the curbside of the roadways in order to, in specific locations throughout the villages in order to try and slow down traffic that way with a more physical measure than just the delineators?
Thank you, through the mayor. Yeah, in Verschoyle, like, again, to your point there, initially, they were being damaged quite frequently, and then you think a lot of. That was largely due to vandalism, so I think that has subsided somewhat. I don't know, Sean, if you have any thoughts on that, but.
Yeah, there was a time period there where we were having to replace them quite regularly, and it was, I guess, perceived that it was intentional damage that was being done to them, and the delay for the reason why they were missing for some periods of time, we ran out of material, had to order some more, experienced some shipping delays. I mean, it was a bit of a learning experience. If I can offer anything, I think as these delineators become more widely used across the county, they'll become less and less of a target, right? I think it's change. Sometimes change is not always welcome. And, sometimes bad actors, do things that try and thwart efforts of what we're trying to achieve, right? And the community too. Everybody wants to see the speed reduced. So I think overall it's a positive experience. What we've discovered in Verschoyle, and I think expanding it out to other communities is pretty helpful.
To the second part of your question, yeah, so whenever road work is planned, we're looking at opportunities where we can change the road cross sections for more traffic calming. So as you said, narrowing the road to slow down traffic. Those are obviously bigger cost items, so the idea is to do it when road reconstruction is scheduled or needed. We are planning to do some measures in Plattsville that was approved by county council. So there was an existing center island that was constructed there for traffic calming. So we found though that it wasn't effective in reducing speeds where vehicles were just able to maintain their speed. They were driving in the parking lane. So we're going to add some curb bump outs. So again, that creates a bit of a narrowing and forces traffic to make that lane shift. So we're going to try that as a pilot study, and if successful, then we'll consider implementing more physical features like that I referred to in areas where speeding can be a problem.
Any other questions? Councillor White.
More of a comment than a question. I do think that the efforts are being rewarded in the three villages that you mentioned, Verschoyle, Delmer, and Beachville. I think it does help. This one wasn't in the report, but when you put the speed signs up in Fulton's with the lights flashing, the residents have noticed a huge difference with the speed. So they are working. So I kudos to you. I think it does help. You're always gonna have people that speed regardless of what the signs are, how the lights are flashing. But I think overall, I think your efforts are being accepted and people are happy.
Councillor Burger.
Yeah, I live in Delmer, and I noticed that a lot of people are very conscious of it. But coming west out of Tilsonburg, there's a sightline problem that trees need to be trimmed back because you can't see it until you're right at the low spot and then starting to come up. So, I mean, just for a note for your crew.
Any other questions or comments? Sure. A couple of quick ones. First of all, remind council that the purpose of all of this work in the beginning was because of all the complaints about speeding, and that we're trying to, I think the county's program is to try and slow things down as much as possible, and then sort of see what actually works and what doesn't. So we've had comments in the past about the center line delineators, about bump outs, about speed signs, all these sort of things. And I think part of the process here was to kind of say what works in one situation as compared to another. So appreciate the kind of diversity of options that have been explored across the county, that's for sure. The one thing I did notice is that there's no incoming information on your report on Verschoyle. And just wondering what happened there.
Yeah, thank you. When we originally collected data there as part of the original study, the issue of concern was outgoing speed, so the incoming speeds weren't considered excessive. They were over the posted speed, but within 10 kilometers of posted speed, so the problem there was outgoing speeds. And the delineators were effective in reducing that to within an acceptable speed in our opinion, I guess.
Thank you. The other thing I would just mention and remind both council and the audience is that the way you control speed for everybody else is to actually drive the speed limit yourself. And I noticed that a lot in one village to the north, I won't say Beachville out loud, but if you drive 50 through Beachville, very seldom you get passed. I did have experience on Sunday and Monday. Sunday this was where somebody driving through Sweetburg. I was driving the speed limit, somebody asked me, and I thought, boy, they're taking a chance here, but anyway, I think that's one of the things that every citizen can do. Drive the speed limit, and then the people behind you actually usually slow down and drive the speed limit. Okay, any other questions for Frank or John? Checking. Seeing none, thanks very much, gentlemen. Thank you. Good luck out there. Okay, Len Chan, you here? He's not here yet, okay, he's on for 9:30, so, okay. Okay, just for the public, if they're public meetings, then we have to follow an exact timeline, well, relatively exact timeline. If they're just presentation for information, we have a little bit more flexibility, so that is presentation for 9:30. Come on in, sir.
Good to see you.
Grab a chair.
Thank you.
So, we're a little bit early, go ahead if you would, please, Landon, and
For sure, I just go ahead and start presenting on Team Go there.
and you introduce yourself and
Certainly. Good morning. My name is Christopher Barrett. I'm the acting director of operations and development for the town of Tillsonburg. Mr. Landon Chan is my colleague. He is our transit coordinator. And he's here to give a presentation, information just about the regional transit in Oxford County. And it's a wealth of information. If you've got some questions, I know he'll be certainly capable of answering those for you. Thank you. Absolutely, thank you. So do I just go ahead?
go ahead.
Wonderful. Okay, so yeah, why we're here today, so we're gonna provide a in-town and inter-community service update to you all. We're also gonna present some ridership data unique to the municipality of Southwest Oxford in relation to inter-community. Also, there's some topics on funding to talk about. There's the community transit grant that's coming to an end March 31st, 2025. That is the current government grant that's 100% funding our operational costs for our inter-community systems. That'll be coming to an end March 31st, 2025. So as of April 1st, there will be a clear funding gap for the service. Also in relation to funding, the Ontario Transit Investment Fund is currently active right now. 3 of the guiding principles are integrated, coordinated, and sustainable. Sustainable in terms of financially sustainable. So we'll talk about that in later slides. And also we're here to present our efforts to maintain the service through to 2026. And we're also going to talk about briefly our report to council coming that 10th, which should have council guide us for the future of TGO and give a larger update to the general public. So moving forward, a quick update for our in-town transit service. Our service contract with Vuego, similar to our inter-community, does come to an end March 31st, 2025. For in-town, nothing's going to change. We're just going to renew our service contract with Vuego, and in-town service will operate as normal. Just some brief comments on the graphics there. There's just our fare breakdown, as well as our total all-time ridership from 2021 to present. I'll mention that the town of Tillsonburg is currently working on our first transportation master plan. So part of that will be some guidance towards the future of our in-town service. So that is kind of the future of our in-town for now. And then moving forward to our inter-community service here, this is what we're currently offering. Right now, I'll just speak on it. Route 1 has always been seen as our most successful route, although that could be attributed to, you know, days of operation and such, since it's the only route that does operate Monday to Friday. We've always just seen it as our best route in terms of ridership growth, and also in relation to services your municipality. So that's the route there that you want to be looking at. So all time from August 2020 to present, Route 1 has brought in 7,526 total ridership. And if you refer to the other totals there, you can see that bulk of the ridership has came from Route 1, whereas the other routes have not been as reliable in terms of bringing in ridership and showing some trend per se. So moving forward here, this is just a quick graph. The blue line at the top there is representation of our Route 1 and its growth. Really what this graph just shows is our confidence level on Route 1, which is what we use as the basis of our proposal that I will be talking about in later slides as well. So looking at there's just a brief demographic breakdown as well. In terms of demographics, mainly seniors and adults that we assume to be, you know, working age do rely on this service. So they make up the bulk of our ridership there. And yeah, you can go on to the next slide. So here, most importantly, this is a quick snippet of some SWOX ridership data. This is broken down per stop, and this is your all-time ridership. So your top stop there, was at the stop 119 at the Brownsville Community Center. That has always been the top stop in bringing in the bulk of ridership. All time, SWOX has brought in just over 400 riders through the existence of inter-community transit. So it's minuscule there. It accounts for approximately 4% of total ridership through the 4-year cycle of inter-community. So that's just some numbers to digest there, and you can interpret that as you see fit. Next here is another ridership breakdown overview for SWOX. This kind of shows the on and offs on a stop by stop basis. As you can see there in the middle of the graph, there is a pretty big spiked line. That there was no clear trend showing where that came from. It was just a spike in stop usage at the cemetery stop briefly over a couple months. So it doesn't really show a clear trend there, and it may make you think that that was actually your best year in terms of ridership. However, 2024 was your best year for ridership with just over 140 riders there. So it is showing, I guess, some demand or some reliance, or at least some increased usage of the service. But again, they're just looking at the visuals and the numbers. There's just been lots of ups and downs. While some of that could be attributed to the pandemic and COVID and just how our service runs in terms of reliability. As you can see there's just a few riders relying on it. Obviously, we acknowledge that it exists. We want to continue offering them a service, but as you can see, it is just very minuscule in terms of our total ridership. So moving on here, this is what we call our inter-regional transit proposal. So just to give you a brief history on this, this is one of the first projects I started working on when I first started at the town of Tillsonburg. It originally started off with consultation from the Director of Public Works from Oxford County, more so in relation to the red or the Northern Oxford route, as we call it. Some of you may be familiar with this route. It was originally from 2020, 2021 timeframe, and it was mentioned in a report from Oxford County, and it was actually vetted by County Council, but it just wasn't able to get the buy-in from the lower tiers at the time. They decided to kind of revitalize this proposal and have TGO as the current regional transit provider build on that route to create the Southern Oxford route, which you see in blue there. It is mainly based on our Route 1, which has been tried and tested over the past 5 years, and it has been tweaked slightly. How it's been tweaked and the relevance of the route there, we based it on Oxford County average driver count data As well as just looked at our ridership trends. 7 of the last 12 months for our Route 1 have been growth months in terms of ridership numbers. So we felt comfortable basing the southern Oxford route on those statistics there. To speak on the services that servicing Squawks municipality, there are a few stops allocated to service Squawks as part of the southern Oxford route. However, we had to remove some of the existing Squawks stops just on the basis of historical ridership data and just more so catered and maintain the stops that have historically been bringing in the most riders. Although that the number of stops in Squawks has reduced, we believe the stops we've selected can build some ridership there. This here just kind of shows the breakdown of what we wanted to do with this proposal here. The nature of this proposal was just to maintain a service from April 1st, 2025 to March 31st, 2026, just for that time frame there. That was just, again, to maintain a service up until we were at a comfortable stage to apply to the OTIF fund, which again, I'll speak in more detail on a later slide there. But the nature of these routes here, we proposed 2 runs per day with 1 bus, 1 morning, 1 afternoon route for the red route. Since it's never been tried and tested, we figured that was a comfortable service just for a pilot, so to speak. And then for the southern Oxford route, since it's been tried and tested, we figured more so we could service that with 2 buses, with 2 runs per day, 1 morning, 1 afternoon route. And then with the potential for on-demand transit or flex stops per se. But with that, we would have to have on-demand technology equipped with our buses, which we currently do not have. So again, this is more aspirational and perhaps thinking of the future, so to speak. So now looking at some of the financials here, one of the main reasons why Tillsonburg and Intercommunity Transit and TGO is just in such a tough spot is that historically speaking, the community transit grant has been paying for our subcontract expense with Boyego, which has been the bulk of our operational costs over the past 4 or 5 years. Our 5-year average, it's roughly around 360,000, but that number is actually higher. The average is calculated from our 2020 pilot, which was under 160,000. So taking out that, our average is around 400,000 alone just for operating expenses for intercommunity. So showing this here, like we saw that, in order for this to remain financially sustainable and, maintain the service, we had to modify our current existing service, which is what we came up with the Northern Oxford and Southern Oxford routes. However, right now we haven't been able to obviously make the relations with some of the lower tiers to get the buy-in for this, and also Oxford County. I just wasn't comfortable at this stage of vetting this proposal further. And you can continue, sorry. So here I'll talk more about the estimated cost for the proposal. So as you can see there, our services right now, 411,000. What we managed to do for the April 1st, 2025 for a refined program, which was that proposal there, we managed to get the number down to around 270. These estimates are just based off of modules that Boyego ran. And then below there shows the proportionate cost share that we roughly created, rough estimates that we wanted to get vetted with Oxford County for them to essentially propose a county levy to have the lower tiers all contribute to this proposed service, just to maintain a service through until we were at a comfortable stage to do an OTIF application to then transfer over funding back to government rather than working into municipal budget lines like we've proposed here. So then now speaking of OTIF, so it is currently open. It was released kind of in late October of last year. In essence, it is to replace the current community transit grant that is funding our service right now. So the main difference between the Ontario Transit Investment Fund and the community transit grant is that individual municipalities cannot apply. It's more so based on connectivity, integration, collaboration. They want to establish project teams incorporating all the lower tiers involved within the county jurisdiction that the routes are servicing. So for example, we have to have all 8 lower tiers within Oxford County as part of the project team for this OTIF fund, and each municipality is also supposed to have their own responsibilities, and it'd be more of a working relationship, so to speak. So considering the nature of this fund and how it's very robust and heavy-handed, and it does rely on those partnerships to reach a successful application with the timeframe that it came out with and that loose proposal that we were working on with Oxford County just to maintain a service. Tillsonburg just was not at the stage to apply to this fund quite yet. So speaking on this further, this is somewhat of a new development, but Middlesex County is actually working on a OTIF application right now. We have not had discussions with them yet. We just heard about this yesterday, but they have had some discussion with Oxford County as being a partner on this application for the OTIF fund. And loosely just looking at their work so far, they more so are proposing through the OTIF fund a larger transportation network connecting their services in Middlesex County to our services in Oxford County. So right now this application is going to be over the course of 5 years, and it's going to be a multi-step process. But right now, if I remember correctly, you're focusing on routes mainly connecting like Ingersoll to London, Woodstock to London, London to St. Thomas and such, to create a more fulsome loop to connect our county jurisdictions together. So relevance with Tillsonburg is that since we are the current municipality operating regional services, they have invited us to the table to be a part of the project team. And essentially consult with them as part of the application to build a route that not only works for us in Vigo, but also works for everyone in Oxford County. So we're gonna have conversations with them soon, and perhaps based on those, we can provide an update accordingly. And I'm not sure if they're looking for other lower tiers to join the project team currently, but right now they have reached out to Tillsonburg right now just to gauge our interest and see how we can help them with this large application here. So then right now, this is other funding that's available. Sadly, we do not qualify for the Canadian Permanent Public Transit Fund. It's offered through 3 streams, and you can see there, it counts us out immediately. We don't have a population of 100,000. We don't have a minimum ridership of 30,000. And the last one there is for capital projects. So really, that's not what we're looking for. We're looking for more funds to support operational costs. So lastly, in terms of funding, Tillsonburg has applied to this planning and design project streams fund offered through the Rural Transit Solutions Fund. It's a $50,000 fund mainly to pay for a study for transit solutions. 50,000 obviously is not a lot. Tillsonburg, if we were awarded the grant, we most likely have to match it to afford a worthwhile study for a right fit transit solution. So for this $50,000 stream, we do have that Northern Oxford and Southern Oxford route proposal in our back pocket that we could utilize as part of this fund to essentially have it analyzed further to see if it's actually a right fit transit solution for Oxford County and if it services the lower tiers fairly. So we are still waiting to hear if we've been awarded the grant, but if so, that's right now what we're currently planning to use it for. That's about it there. And obviously we're welcome to any questions you all may have.
Okay, thanks very much, man.
Yes.
Any questions from council? We have 2 councillors on virtual here, so I'm kind of watching and kind of well. Any questions from council? Oh, Councillor Yipman, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. When you look at page 7 of the report, it shows an all-time ridership from SWAX over the 4 years of 401 or 100 rides per year. And then when I look down to page 11 of the report, the breakdown for us for the upcoming year is $18,150, which is basically a subsidized ride fee of $181.50 per ride if ridership continues at the current averages. And I'm just wondering if that's deemed an acceptable amount to be subsidizing public transit.
To speak on the proportionate cost share there, this was done in-house by town staff. It was not done based on historical ridership, so apologize for that there. It was more so just based on county numbers that we got from a document, and they based it on similar ratios in terms of other programs that county has an allocation to proportionate cost shares there, so. Yeah, we understand in relation to ridership, that's perhaps not a comfortable number, but looking at it here, you know, it's mainly, I guess, the size of the municipality and population that is more so an allocation to the amount that they'll be contributing to the service.
Other questions? So in the study you're doing, or in any study done, you look at return, and to Councillor Gibbons' comment about the cost per ride, seems high, right?
Yeah,
Probably cheaper to have a taxi, but, I'm just wondering about the, look at the return on investment. So if I spend $100 to give you a ride, what did I get out of it, right? And, there's some people and, not people, at the bus stop in Ingersoll. So people are standing there waiting for the bus. I generally kind of stop and visit them and find out where they're going, and some of them will say, well, you know, it's $10 ride to Tillsonburg, and I gotta get to my doctor's appointment. So for them, it's a big thing, right? And I mean, the subsidy aside, for them, this is important, they gotta get to the doctor, and you know, it's cheaper than a taxi, so, but I'm wondering overall, like, we're obviously not watching or not seeing people take it every day to work, right? We've seen kind of one-offs. Just wondered, how do we establish a fair and accurate way to say what's the return on investment? And then the next thing would be, if this isn't cost effective, what would be the alternate? If we're in fact trying to provide some form of public transit.
right, and yeah, these are very big questions, and the tough thing about public transit is that it is very much low cost recovery. It's never really a moneymaker, but I understand the main purpose of public transit is getting the best bang for your buck, correct? And right now, like currently our service, like we understand that, you know, it is being utilized and people do rely on it to, you know, get to medical appointments or work per se. However, it isn't as reliable perhaps as it can be. Is it the introduction of more buses, you know, more stops, whatever it may be, but I think the main answer to that question is, no matter how I look at it, to make the service better, it's just gonna cost more. So that's where like we're kind of in a tough spot right here, like it'd be all fine and dandy if we could somehow work it into municipal budget lines and not have to rely on government funding. But the thing is, obviously, it is a very big cost to ask municipalities to endure, so I guess it seems like government funding is the way to move forward. However, the nature of that is that depending on which government's in power, you know, programs can change, and that's kind of in the seat we're in right now. You know, we've had a program that has been completely funding the system and that has been working for the better part of 4 years, but you know, right now we're kind of in that spot like where if there's a big enough appetite for it in Oxford County, is it time to now, you know, work it into municipal budget lines, or is it, I guess, time to again to apply to a government grant and I guess maybe try a different system entirely. The thing about OTIF is that we can't just copy and paste the current system we're operating. We have to come up with something new. This was in our minds like something new that we thought we could perhaps sell for the interim, up until we could, you know, apply to another fund and create a better system. So yeah, all I can say is, yeah, these numbers are very rough, and I understand, yeah, they have to perhaps be looked at again and worked out better.
So when we look at $1,000 loss on a transit system, and then you compare it to the loss of, say, City of Woodstock, probably equivalent in that ballpark.
Right.
Look at loss of public transit in the City of Toronto, and this is a drop in the bucket, right? So as you say, public transit is never going to pay for itself. Let's accept that. Okay. The other question I had was in looking at your current red-blue routes, proposed routes,
Yes.
and the going right up 19 instead of veering over to Brownsville. Looking at the attendance numbers in Brownsville compared to Mount Elgin, for example, they're relatively close, right? And I'm just wondering, is there any thought of running that route over to Brownsville and then back, kind of the way it is in Route 1 now?
Yeah, like, perhaps I missed this in the presentation, but yeah, we have different variations and versions of these proposed routes. These were just the ones that we landed on lastly. The main explanation for just the straight shot up Highway 19 was just for efficiency and just for timing purposes. We figured just with that route, it'd be easier to keep on schedule and such, but yeah, we do have versions of the blue route that maintain that loop through to Brownsville, similar to the original Route 1. So like, yeah, obviously this is great, like, this is kind of what like Tillsonburg wants, conversation and like, you know, I guess. You know, your opinion on the road, how it can service your municipality better and how we can rework it per se, like that's not off the table, like we're nimble. Like, we wanna make this work for, like, of course, yeah, so that's, you know, that's on the table for sure. We can obviously revisit that whenever the time is.
Okay, so I do struggle, as Councillor Gittman alluded to, I do struggle with the cost per ride. And not knowing what's the value to the person receiving that ride. But it does strike me as, it's too expensive as compared to if we were gonna subsidize, some other form of, taxi or something like that, so. Any other questions from council? Oh, Councillor Gittman again.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wonder if the folks from Tillsonburg could speak a little bit to the timing of the routes themselves. It's always been a nagging question in the back of my mind, given the distances that we need to cover on a countywide basis. Is the timing of the routes effective? If I'm a resident of Tillsonburg and I need to make a medical appointment in London, how much time does that take? And is it feasible to meet schedules or to meet work schedules with the public transit system? Or is a trip to London going to be a project that takes me an entire day to accomplish? I just wonder if you can speak to that a little bit.
That's a good question, and just speaking with riders that use our system, that is a problem that they do have. With these proposed routes here, Voyago clocked them at 2 hours per run, and that is if, you know, everything's running smoothly and, you know, people are at the stop at the time that they're supposed to be, driver gets there, picks them up, so to speak, but, you know, on any given day, there could be, you know, hiccup barriers in place that can affect the schedule and stuff, and, you know, essentially make the service not as reliable as it can be. As of right now, I can speak on our existing route to London. It is very much so like a day trip thing, like, you know, whether people need to get there for appointments or just for shopping, like it is something that they have to usually call ahead and ask me, you know, when the bus is gonna be in Tillsonburg and how long the bus is gonna take to get to Ingersoll and then to Dorchester, then to London. So it is an all-day thing that they have to plan. And in terms of our public transit right now, I can comfortably say it's not something that the working class people can rely on, so to speak, just on how the scheduling is and how the busing is. Perhaps they can take the bus in the morning to get to work. But in terms of afternoon trips and stuff like that, usually they have to find transport back somehow, whether it be cab or you know, charter route, so to speak, with Voyago. But yeah, it's tough, and you know, it's hard to, I guess, make a route that's perfect that'll work for everyone. But really, right now, just with the routes and the stops that we want to target, we have, you know, Woodstock Hospital, Tillsonburg Hospital, all that, like, we realize that people, you know, want to get to those places and they're, you know, desirable. However, in terms of the timing and the scheduling and all that, like, it's always tough, and I understand the point you're making, and, I'm sorry if I can't answer the question to the best of my ability there, but, yeah, like, it's tough, and obviously scheduling is,
Any other questions? Well, thanks very much, man, for being here. Appreciate
Thank you.
you very much,
Yeah,
and
appreciate the time.
encourage Tillsonburg to keep exploring the options and see where we come around.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. I guess we could move right on to the Borlax. Borlax wants to come forward in the public meeting, so we'll get started a little bit early. there, but. And the front door, but anyway, okay. Go ahead, gentlemen, take us through the presentation.
Thank you, Mayor, Mayberry, councilors and staff for taking the time today to listen to an update on the Oxford project. Just one piece of logistics, for Julie. I think one member of our team, Nick Backus, hasn't received a Zoom invite yet. Shall be emailed you, I think just recently, to see if we can forward the invite to Nick. So that, if you're able to do that, that would be great. My name is Sierra Mia, Senior Development Manager for Borlex. And I'm flanked here on either side with Mark Vanderwoord, Chris Olson, for helping us with respect to consultation consultants for permit approvals and technical reports. I also have three people in the audience as well that are part of the team that are helping as well. So we have a good friendly army here. We'll be able to answer questions and talk about the Oxford battery storage project. So thanks for putting it on the screen. We have here the concept map of the battery project. So this is, and we've been to council before in 2024. So this map is showing you just an overview of where the project is located. So you see here that the project facility in terms of the batteries are in an aggregate pit in an area that's been extracted on the east side of the aggregate pit, just west of Mill Street in Southwest Oxford, which is the red hatched area. And then we have a transmission line, which is 1.5 kilometers, mostly underground, that gets us to the point of interconnection, which is just north of Carn Road on an existing Hydro One 115 kV line. And we think that this is a great place to put a storage project because this existing infrastructure. It's zoned appropriately, or we're getting bylaw amendments to do something of that nature. And we're not using up arable land. We're marrying one infrastructure project with another infrastructure project. It's a 125 megawatt project, which is designed to run for 4 hours, so 500 megawatt hours. And the idea here is that the electricity grid operator needs it for reliability. So we would provide power and energy during peak time when everyone comes home and turns on their lights and air conditioners. And it approximately takes about 12 acres of the aggregate pit floor. So that's an overview of the project and its location, as most may know. Go to the next slide, please. So just some updates here. As I mentioned, we have consultants that are helping us out with respect to bonds, helping on the environmental and permitting side. Mark Vanderberg representing, Chris Olson also with some technical reports. We're currently engaging with our battery supplier, so final negotiations. So we've selected a battery supplier. Once we are finalized that, we'll be able to make that public and share with the public through an open house before construction. And we're engaging with contractors, engineers, with respect to designing the battery project and selecting who's going to be constructing it. And we've completed preliminary design in terms of, where all the rectangles go on the aggregate pit in terms of what's a battery, what's an inverter, et cetera. Some of the next steps that we're doing, and the reason why we wanted to come to council now is that in mid-February, we'll be submitting a zoning bylaw amendment and official plan amendment as requested by the county and municipalities, so that we can permit the use of the storage facility in the location we're proposing it. We'll be selecting the final contractor to construct the project. We're also finalizing an emergency response plan in collaboration with the Oxford County Fire Chief. So we've been meeting with Chief Cascanet, his predecessor, Chief Slager as well, multiple meetings, and that will continue throughout the design of the project to make sure that they're happy with respect to emergency response. And we're completing environmental assessment, class environmental assessment screening report. That should be done in the next weeks or months. And engaging with the Ministry of Natural Resources in terms of the project being on the aggregate pit floor. So those are some of the steps, and the big ones are submission of the zoning bylaw amendment and the official plan. That's coming in a couple of weeks, which will be on the agenda in due course going forward with respect to councils at Southwest Oxford and Oxford County. If we move on to the next slide, this is a bit more a bit of an overview and overlap in terms of status. So in the top left-hand corner, just highlighting that we've done preliminary design. So you'll see in the application, the zoning bylaw and official plan amendment, there will be some technical reports associated with those applications. We'll review one of them in this presentation, and we're about to do detailed design, going from preliminary design. We're finalizing the Class EA, as I mentioned. We're gonna be doing stormwater compliance with the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks, as well as the sound study. And we're finalizing, the sound impact assessment, national heritage assessment, geological studies, and we're finalizing the cultural heritage report. Other permits, of course, other than zoning bylaw and official plan amendment, are site plan, road use agreement, and building permits, which are normal in the process of putting a project and building a project to be able to actually put a shovel into the ground. So that's the overall project status. Go to the next slide. So this community risk assessment, this was asked by Oxford County for us to do with respect to this project. And it's where Chris Olson has been supporting from his experience and background. And the purpose of, and this is an example of the technical reports that we'll be submitting with the zoning bylaw and official plan amendment. There's a whole slew of reports, including other things like a functional servicing plan, stormwater management plan, agricultural impact assessment, etc. So the purpose of the CRA was to essentially look at the potential impacts of health and safety on the community and the residents, and to develop mitigation plans with respect to that. So it's looking at what is the hazard, for example, or should I say, what is the receptor? So a person's home. What is the exposure? Maybe sound. What is the hazard? What's the sound level, for example, and then there's an overall risk associated with that. So this is in process of being finalized, and we'll be submitting this in the zoning bylaw and official plan amendment. And ultimately, we've not found that the project won't pose any undue risk to the community. So we're looking at it from a stormwater management perspective in terms of being regulated by the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks to manage stormwater. Looking from a sound perspective, looking for from fire perspective in terms of nominal event. And one of the recommendations for the report is to complete an emergency response plan, as I mentioned before, and this is something that we've been in discussion with the fire department's chiefs, and we'll continue to do that to finalize that as we finalize the design, so that they have inputs on that side. And with respect to just safety in general for battery storage systems, we're at a stage in the industry where the industry has matured significantly in terms of what has been deployed or built, 5, 6, 7 years ago. Now it's a very much a different story in terms of the lessons learned from previous projects and technologies. So this caters to us being able to build an efficient but safe project from a community risk perspective. And this also segues nicely into the next slide, which talks about commitment to fire safety. So there's a lot of levels here with respect to building a safe system. A big chunk of it is on the prevention side with respect to choosing a supplier that has gone through the specific tests with respect to UL 9540A. And there's all these acronyms and numbers that we can share, but at the end of the day, they make sure that they test these systems to ensure that they there's mitigation that they won't fail. And if they do for whatever reason, that they do it in a controlled manner so it doesn't have an adverse impact. So with all these standards in terms of picking the supplier manufacturing the batteries in the way that's safe. Also with respect to how we design the project in terms of placement, there's standards associated with that in terms of placing the containers in a certain area, distances and turning radius for access roads, etc. And then the second bucket is, after all that prevention, there's monitoring and detection, which is another layer, I guess, of prevention as well, with respect to, we're not just building a project and letting it go by itself. There's a lot of layers of monitoring, whether it's automatic monitoring, where there's systems in place where automatic shutoffs if they see a threshold being exceeded, or it's, someone monitoring either our control system at Boralex, our control center, or the supplier's control center. these different layers of monitoring controls allows the project to operate performance duties first and foremost. Well, I would say be safe first and foremost, and also performance duties in terms of providing reliability onto the electricity grid. And then after all these preventative layers, we have to protect for a worst case scenario, just like cars and roads have been designed safely with rules and manufacturers and things like that. Someone can get in a car accident, someone has to respond, and so this is our collaboration and our commitment with the fire chiefs with respect to emergency response, both developing an emergency response plan that the fire chiefs are happy with, and also training the department with respect to education, awareness, and plans in terms of what would happen in a worst case situation. So that's the collaboration that will continue until we finalize design and get their check on that particular box. And that leads to the last slide, which is the sort of anticipated timeline. So right now we're in beginning of 2025, and time does fly. When I look at this timeline, because we've been doing a lot of things as we normally do in a project like this, having multiple open houses. You know, we were awarded this project in Q2 2024. We had an open house last year. We'll be, as I mentioned, submitting the zoning bylaw and official plan amendment to the municipalities to get that through with technical reports, which will be part of that, and there's also reporting that's separate from that from other regulation and ministries like MECP, Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks. And the idea is that the plan is to start construction end of this year, and then we would be operational by the end of 2026 next year. So that's the timeline that we're progressing to, and just coming to council and updating the project with respect to where we're at, how we want to go forward, and presenting ourselves if there's any questions, comments, or concerns. So that's an overview of the presentation and update, and we welcome any questions or comments from council and staff.
Thanks, Acer. Any questions from council?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Becker, you're first.
Yeah, I've had a few questions about the project, nothing overly serious. More so just wanting some more information. So am I safe to say that there will be another public meeting sometime this year? And do you have any idea when that might be?
Yes, Councilor, there will be another public open house. We don't exactly know what time. Usually we do that before we start construction, so it might be maybe beginning of the fall, approximately September, but we haven't confirmed yet, but there will be, and we'll coordinate with staff to make sure that it's ideally suited in terms of not conflicting with any events in the community.
Subsequent question, Mr. Mayor, through you. How will the public be notified? I've had at least two tell us they didn't get the letter the last time around, which I think was October 3rd. So will it be the same process, and who mails out the letters? Is that, are you doing that, or is the township doing that? Where do you get your mailing list? Because I had a few questions around that.
Right, we'll welcome to any recommendations to go further above and beyond with respect to community engagement. We usually mail out to a certain distance around the project and community. We put advertisements in local papers, etc. If there's an event of calendars, municipalities will put that there. Any suggestions of more ways to bring awareness to the open house is welcomed, and we want to make sure that we're getting the word out as much as possible. Any other comments on that, Mark?
Yeah, I'd just say as part of the official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment process, we'll also be going back out to the community as part of that process, the required public consultation, which as part of that, we'll be notifying residents within 120 meters of the project site. So that'll be an additional method of kind of reaching out, Councilor Pickard, in the next phase. I think we have to work with the county and municipal planning staff on the timing for those public meetings, but would anticipate that would be late spring or maybe early summer, but to be kind of confirmed with planning staff as we work through that process.
Thank you very much.
Anything further, Councilor Becker?
No,
Okay, any other questions? Councilor White?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. How many, if these batteries are fully charged, how many homes do this supply hydro for, and how long would it be before those homes drained those batteries?
That's a great question. So the project, it's a reliability of the electricity grid as a whole, so it'll go into the transmission system and usually, depending on how the transmission system is designed, it'll go to the closest load that it's connected to in the transmission system. To give you an idea of like a 125 megawatt project could power between 30 to 120,000 homes, depending on how much power the homes are using. So if for example, to give you a concrete example, if you have 5 people, or let's say 5 people using 5 hair dryers in a home at one time, this project could power 25,000 homes based on that power usage. But usually people don't use 5 hair dryers at the same time, right? So the average of power use of the home is a little bit larger, so you can think of 25,000 to 100,000 homes would be the equivalent amount of power and energy that this project could support. But again, it goes into the electricity grid as a whole for the entire system, and it'll satisfy the load at the closest point, depending on the needs at the exact time.
And at the timeline, it's a 4-hour discharge of the batteries back to the grid, right? You're asking about like how long, so it's a short-term 4-hour back to the grid when the grid operator needs it. And as you said earlier, that's typically when we all get home from work or, come out of the fields and that, and everybody's got the air conditioner going, or in the winter, it's cold like it is last couple weeks. Furnaces come on, dishwashers are used in that, but it's a 4-hour load back to the system when the grid operator wants that power to try to balance out the needs of the whole grid.
Yeah, thanks for coming.
Any other questions? Councilor Brook, Councilor White first.
Question to you, Mayor. So these batteries, if they're completely drained, how long does it take to recharge it?
It would take just over 4 hours to recharge them.
Just 4 hours?
Yeah, and we usually charge at night.
Yeah.
To prepare to be able to discharge during the peak times, like Chris was mentioning, when everyone's flipping on switches and things like that.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Brook, you're next.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. I was just, in your anticipation, do you think that down the road, there will be a possibility of an expansion of the project to, for more power?
We're not, and there's no plans for that right now. Right now, we're just focusing on this project, which is a contract up to 2048 for the independent electricity system operator. If there's a need later on for the project to continue operating, then that can be something that we can talk about. But right now, we're just looking at a project for about 21 years in terms of operational length.
Any other questions? Councilor Yip, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. My question is not so much about this project, but projects like this in general. You mentioned that your transmission line from this project is going to be roughly 1.5 kilometers. What would be the maximum distance that a discharge line like that would be feasible? Do you have any kind of estimations on that?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. It could be tens of kilometers or hundreds of kilometers. I think the feasibility really relies on how big the project is, how long the transmission line is. The transmission line is an expensive piece of the project and things like that. So the longer transmission line is, the less maybe economically feasible a project is. So from a siting perspective, we, first and foremost, we want to put projects where they make sense, around infrastructure. And that's similar to what we've done in our previous projects as well at Hagersville and Tilbury, just like this one being an aggregate pit. And then in addition to that, it's siting it near a transmission line. So we don't have to put we don't want to build a transmission line if we don't need to. So we want to site it as close as possible. So, we have projects that have like 30-kilometer transmission lines and they're feasible. They're just a little bit bigger project. So, even if this line was larger, the project would still be feasible, but our goal was always to site a project as close as possible to the transmission line. Does that answer your question?
Yep, that's great.
Very well, go ahead.
Just out of curiosity, as it travels down the line, is there any loss? Like between the point of feeding it in and the end usage? Is there any loss along the line?
Yeah, there's always losses when you're transmitting electricity. I mean, there would be small losses on our line, it's a very short line, so it's very not significant, I would say. But when you look at the electricity grid as a whole, you have, you know, hundreds and hundreds of kilometers of transmission line. We have projects up north, east, west in Ontario in terms of where they're located. And so when you transmit energy, there's always a loss, and that's taken into account with respect to, you know, what the generator is giving and what the grid operator is receiving. They understand these losses are calculated in. And that's why you want to cite it, everything, you always want to cite the thing that's giving you energy close to the thing that's taking the energy, right? And there's obviously constraints, you can't put, you know, a big project in downtown Toronto, but lots of buildings, for example.
Any other questions? Councilor Yuma?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mary Ellen's question brought to mind another question of mine. If there are losses, where do those losses occur? Is there a concern around the stray voltage with a setup like this and the neighboring farms in the area?
For you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor, no, I mean, the losses are not gonna result in straight voltage, and in fact, because you've only got a kilometer and a half, that line's gonna be buried, which is actually very unusual for a 115 kV line, so there will be a small portion right in the gravel pit that'll be overhead to get up to that field. The line will be buried, give or take 3 to 4 feet, so that the farmer can still till, won't be any interferences with that. And ultimately, the way that the electrical engineers design these lines is like from where their substation is going to be to that point of interconnection across the road, Tarn Road there, to the existing Hydro One station. The electrical engineers, the codes, and the way it works is there won't be a loss that will result in straight voltage to that farm or any of the neighboring properties. The straight voltage issue really comes from distribution lines coming into the farm. They come from a long line of dairy farmers up by the Meaford area. And, you know, I don't think my grandfather ever called an electrician in his life, and at the end of the day, it really is a distribution line, so the small transmission line coming into the farm and then electrical tie-ins there. So we wouldn't expect any straight voltage to the farm that would be crossing or to the neighbors.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Councilor White?
And through you, Mr. Mayor, this question is more for our fire chief. Do we have the training already in place, or it's going to be coming in place for our firefighters? And do we have the proper equipment to handle these type of fires? If there is one.
Through you, Chair, to the councilor's question. I sat in on a meeting with the Borlex team 2 weeks ago. And I can tell you from a community risk assessment process, we're walking through all those steps right now. We have probably 2 years, you know, roughly to get stuff in place. We have been discussing all of the risks associated with the community, but also the training needs and perhaps equipment needs, if any. So I'd say we're very preliminary stages of that, but I know I've chatted with the doctor just around operational stuff, and then right now the look of it is really from a fire protection perspective. It does focus on prevention. It does focus on the detection efforts and the technology built into it, and then the emergency response side of things. So I would say right now, no, but going forward, before we're operationalized, we would definitely have the training and equipment, you know, how to deal with stuff. Again, this does affect us, but it also affects Woodstock as well, being right on the border. So.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, a couple of quick ones, just wondering, the process, I assume that there's gonna need to be an amendment to the pet license?
Yeah, that we're discussing with Ministry of Natural Resources, and that's one path forward with respect to allowing that land use to happen there.
Okay, so then question for Laura, public meetings, or at least zone change and OP, they go ahead without M&R saying that the license has been amended, or are they conditional on license being amended?
Spencer McDonald is managing the file, so I will double check with him, and let you know. If that's okay, yeah.
Council Ray raised the issue, if the fire chief's not happy, council's not gonna be happy, I can guarantee you that, so, I would encourage you to, keep Shane on speed dial, if you need to, so. And the last one I was gonna ask about, was for Adam, what do we need for a road use agreement, is that a full load road up to the pit?
Yeah, that was a good question. Assuming we'll work through that through detailed site plan. But do you have an entrance in mind? Are you gonna use the existing entrance for the gravel pit?
Right now, the plan is to use the existing entrance.
So there'd be, that's all full load, there'd be no additional traffic load that we would have to take into consideration.
There might be modifications to that entrance, making it wider, et cetera. We haven't finalized that, but we'll be coming off of Clark Road, with that, so we can connect to see what is required from a road use agreement perspective to make sure that we have the right agreements in place to make sure that you're satisfied.
Yeah, oh, that's great.
What, can I just add to that? One thing I think we will be able to share is we're working on the traffic brief right now.
Okay.
Just understand that that was a request by MTO for the intersection of Mill and Clark.
Okay.
And so we can share that with your office. I think we'll be reaching out actually really shortly just about kind of the approach and take that.
Yeah, I don't feel it's gonna add significant traffic to that entrance. It is full load.
So the only time that the road use agreement that really have any kind of impact is during construction or deconstruction.
Right, correct.
Okay, and the fact that the road is full load now, or the road, sorry, is full load now, it seems to me that probably not a huge issue for us. Again, if Adam's not happy, we're not happy, you're not.
Understood.
Any other questions? Seeing none, Laura will go back to us on, can we move forward with OPA or zone change without some kind of indication that we don't want to actually rezone something and then find out that the license or they're coming on and going to approve it. So, okay, thanks very much. Anything else for you folks?
No, we're here, we're available. If there's any other questions, feel free to reach out. We're happy to respond, come back and update if necessary.
Okay, and as we pointed out earlier, there will be at least 2 more public meetings simply for the planning issues. And then probably a third one to kind of bring us up to speed on this is where things like.
Yes.
Okay, thanks very much, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you, your worship, thank you, councilors.
What are we?
Yeah, we've got
Okay, we have 3 minutes before the first public meeting, staff report, building 01/2025 year-end report, and Marielle or Julie, who's doing that? Really doing that? Julie, go ahead, please.
So this is just an information report to provide you with an update and overview of the building permit activities as of the year ended December 31st, 2024. The report includes the details of the number of permits that were issued, the summary of the associated permit fees that were collected, in addition to development charges and value of construction. You will see in there that we did exceed the anticipated amount in building permit fees collected in 2024. If there's any questions, we can try to answer that.
Any questions from council? So I've got one. Recently read somewhere where somebody was complaining that the reason you can't build houses is because of development charges, and they used a number of $135,000 in Toronto. I'm suggesting that's not quite the same number as in surplus to Oxford or in Oxford County. Do we have a number that tells us what the average development charge fee was for a house in surplus to Oxford next year? Go ahead, Mary.
About 18,000 for county and township.
Combined 18,000. So would you say that's close to 135,000?
No.
No, I would either. So, no, the problem is that this was out in the press and people read it and it's, you know, municipalities ripping us off. And they use the most extreme example in the province when in fact our situation is very different. I'm not suggesting 18,000 is nothing, I'm just saying, if the public starts to realize that we're believing that, 135,000 is the number, I don't think it helps anybody. And that's why I wanted to know what the, thank you very much. Any other questions on this report? Yeah, move in a second to the report, move by Goodman, second by Thurston. Sorry. Result, Council Self, Sergeant Chief Report BD 01/2025 year end zoning report is December 31st, 2024, in further discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
I don't think we better run the voting code. Let's move back then to the first planning report. And this is from Annandale Farms. And Debbie, did you want to come to the table? Okay. So explain it once. I see a couple of other people here that will be the next report, so they're going to hear it, and I'm only going to do it once. Process is this: the planner will give the overview of the report and recommendations. Then council has an opportunity to ask me questions just for clarification if there's something they don't understand. Then the applicant has the opportunity to make any comments they want if they choose. Then we open it up to the public, and anyone in the audience or online can ask questions or raise concerns. And then after that, we'll come to a decision. Council will then debate and come to a decision. Okay, so same process for all the planning reports this morning, and well, if you don't mind, please.
Thank you.
Oh, wait a minute. Oh, we need a motion to go into public meeting. Thank you very much. Move it. Gillis, seconded by the way. Council go into a public meeting for planning issues. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Now we can proceed as I said we were going to. So, go ahead, please.
Great, thank you, Mayor Mayberry, members of council, staff, and members of the audience. I'm here to present application ZN 2413 Annandale Farms. The purpose of this application is to rezone the property from general agricultural zone to special general agricultural zone, A248. It's a condition of the original severance B 2419-4, which was granted on July 4th, 2024, requiring that these lands are to be rezoned to be consistent with the zone of the lot to be enlarged. So Debbie's property. The subject lands are 6.48 hectares or about 16 acres in area with frontage on Union Road. The intent of the original consent or severance was to take these lands and combine them with the next door existing undersized farm located at 403-582 Union Road. The subject lands are surrounded by agricultural lands. The notice of application was sent out on November 11th, 2024, public notice on January 15th, 2025. I did not receive any comments or concerns regarding this proposal. In terms of the provincial planning statement, this proposal satisfies the provincial planning statement with respect to agricultural uses in prime agricultural areas and lot adjustments. In terms of the official plan, it's consistent with the policies of the OP regarding agricultural lot additions. In terms of the zoning bylaw, the A248 zone, so Debbie's property, requires a minimum lot area of 30 hectares or 74.1 acres and a minimum lot frontage of 100 meters or 328 feet. Once these subject lands, so what you can see on the drawing up there, are combined with Debbie's property, the resulting parcel will have a lot area of 30.68 hectares or 75 acres and a frontage of 391.7 meters, which both of those exceed the requirements for the A248 zone. So given that the proposal complies with the provincial planning statement, the official plan, and the zoning bylaw, staff are recommending their support of this application, and I'm very happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Any questions from council for clarification? Seeing any, Debbie, it's up to you now. As the applicant, any comments you want to make in favor or opposed to the report?
Please be in favor.
You're in favor of the report.
Absolutely.
Anything you want to add?
No.
No, okay. Anyone in the public want to speak in favor of the report? Anyone in the public want to speak opposed to the report? Seeing none, back to council for questions, comments.
I'll ask a question, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Wade, then Councillor Becker. Go ahead, Councillor
I
Wade.
was gonna say, I have no issues with this, I think it's all good going forward, I was gonna make a motion to approve it, but.
Okay, and Councillor Becker, do you want to say?
I just wondered why the parcel B wasn't squared off, that it left a jog down at the south end there of 54.84 feet. I just wondered why the property wasn't squared off.
That was the original plan to square it off, but that's how it ended up being.
Okay,
I don't, that doesn't really answer your question, but that was the plan, was to square it off. That little jut out there that you do see, it is not farmable anyways, it's just wooded area. But that was the intent of adding the 16 acres to the other, was to square it off and make it for ease of farming.
okay.
Okay. Any other questions? Councillor, Adam, you want to speak?
Yeah, I just wanted question for Laurel, was the town of Ingersoll circulated on this, means it is liberal
Yes.
allowance on some, okay. That's all.
Okay, any other questions? Seeing none, Councillor Wade, you wanted to make a motion? Wait a minute, we have to go to the public meeting. All right, let's, rise to the public meeting, moved by Booker, second by Gillis. Rise, any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed, that's carried. And Councillor Wade.
And I move that we approve the application for Mannerdale Farms for this project on Union Road.
Second,
And there was seconder,
second,
second by Durston. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing any, all those in favor? Opposed, that's carried. And the appeal process on this is?
So notice will go out tomorrow, and then there's 20-day appeal period, and then the decision is final.
Okay, so anyone can appeal, so don't pick off your neighbors for a couple of weeks. And, but, the fact that they haven't shown up today generally means that they're not going to appeal. So, and if they haven't made comments, they can't appeal. So, you just have to wait for formality, you just have to wait for 20 days. And as Julie says, Wednesday or Thursday, the notice will go, and, then the clock starts ticking. Okay?
Super.
All right, thanks very much.
Thank you for your time.
Another 3 minutes to get to the next one. So, why don't we do CL 07 2025 holiday code? I'm pretty sure that will be fairly quickly. Julie, any comments on that?
I don't have any comments, no, I just bring this forward to council now, because if there is support to do the same this year, then staff can plan and ensure that they have either vacation or leave time saved for the office closure period. And as mentioned in the report, we have done this for the last couple of years now, and we have found that we have very little that comes up from the public, if at all. I've been on call the last couple of years, and I have not received any phone calls or any issues. We haven't received any concerns with the office closure during this period.
Okay, any discussion or comments? Councillor Gillis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think it's a good thing, and I think I don't have any problems with it. I just wonder whether we can approve this on more of a regular basis or regularly compared to bringing it to council every year. I think that I don't have any objections to being a regular thing. But it depends on what the rest of the council wants or whether we can do that. I just think if we generally have been doing it the last few years without a problem, whether we can just make it a regular thing that council approves.
The only challenge I can see is the dates will change, and that was the question I was going to have is, why are we opening for Friday, January 2nd for 1 day?
Well, we do have council the following week, so we do have to prepare for that.
Okay.
I mean, we could approve it on a go forward basis. I think it's helpful for us to kind of see how the dates fall and bring that forward. I think also it depends a bit on, in the past, we've had staff that have been new and they haven't had as much vacation time, and I don't know, do you have any thoughts on?
Well, sir, I think that Okay, so, yes, so we could bring a policy or procedure forward. It wouldn't have to state dates. It could just have some generic information contained within it. And then just do a report to council every year on what those dates are going to be.
So, yeah, I would direct you to staff.
Yeah, that would be my suggestion, direction to staff, but, until that's, and, until that's done, I'll approve, make a motion to approve this.
Okay, Councilor Yip, you're next.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The one concern that I've raised with staff previous to this, around this issue, Durham Center Hall, the township is the key holder for that hall as well as the booking agent. And just want to make sure that there is going to be a contact number that can be put on the rental agreements for that hall, such that if the township office is closed, that renters can still get a hold of the key somehow.
That's noted. That's done.
We, staff contacts the renters in advance of the closing date and provides them with keys.
Councilor Ghost, you're gonna move this report?
Yeah.
You have a second? Councilor Booker. Resolve the council doesn't substitute the city report CL 7, 2025 to 2025 holiday municipal office closure for information. And further, the council approve the closure of council surface office municipal office from Wednesday, December 24th, 2025 to Thursday, January 1st, 2026, with the municipal office opening, reopening Friday, January 2nd, 2026. Any discussion, further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those carried. Got a motion to go into public meeting. Moved by Gallo, second by Pearson. Go into public meeting for, let's see, zone change, 42416, pro transport. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Oh, that's carried. Matt, you might as well come to the table. You heard the process before, same process. We're good with it. Let's go. Laurel, please.
Thank you, Mayor Mayberry, members of council, staff, and members of the audience. The proposal is to amend the existing special general industrial zone MG8 to add eating establishment as permitted use to allow for a seasonal ice cream shop of approximately 598 square feet within the existing building. It would be a walk-up only ice cream shop. No new development is proposed. All of the required work will be internal to the existing property. So the property is about 0.2 hectares or about half an acre. It contains a 2-story building currently used for office and storage. There's also a food truck on the premises. So none of these uses will be changed or proposed to be changed. Right now, access is currently provided by a plank line in Mount Elgin Road. I understand that the owners are proposing to close the access to plank line. The property is surrounded by residential, agricultural, and industrial uses on a range of lot sizes. In terms of circulating the application, the notice of the complete application was sent out on December 17th, 2024, and public notice was sent out January 15th, 2025. I did not hear any comments or concerns from the township or county staff regarding any aspect of this proposal, including parking, traffic, or access. In terms of our analysis of this application, the proposal complies with the policies of the provincial planning statement regarding achieving complete communities, making our settlement areas the focus of growth and development, and including a mix of land uses in settlement areas. In terms of the official plan, the property is designated village core in the village of Mount Elgin land use plan. Village cores are typically pedestrian oriented, compact, and historically they functioned as main shopping districts for areas. Planning staff feel that the proposed ice cream shop is consistent with the vision and intended function of a village core. And the walk-up nature will support pedestrian activity and active transportation in Mount Elgin. In terms of zoning bylaws, staff are of the opinion that the proposed amendment to the current zone is compatible with the surrounding land uses, and that the site and building are of sufficient size to accommodate the ice cream use without negatively impacting the functionality of the current site or the surrounding area. Therefore, the planning office is of the opinion that the application to amend the existing zone to include a 55.75 square meter eating establishment as a permitted use and a minimum of 8 parking spaces be supported. And I'd be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you both. Any questions for clarification from council? Not seeing any. Matt, anything you wanted to comment?
No, I think we're all set. We will be trying to close off that pipeline, entrance just for, ease, because we're hoping again for the walk up. So just trying to eliminate a lot of through traffic and anybody racing to the parking lot, so. Other than that, that's the only concern that we've had, and,
Anyone in the public want to speak in favor of the application? It's ice cream, folks. Anyone want to speak opposed to the application? Seeing none, back to council for questions and comments. Councilor Bolton, you're first.
Just one comment, and with an ice cream walk up, there's gonna be a lot of foot traffic. Are we gonna run into possibility if people get hit on either one of the roads because they are a high use area? Is there any crosswalks that we could put in to alert traffic similar to the ones that they have in Tillsonburg and other places with flashing lights?
And currently, we don't have any PXOs or costing on any of those, so I'm not sure what costing would be or the need for one, but. I don't think it meets any criteria for a PXO.
Yeah, through your Mary, no, it doesn't meet any criteria, however, planning staff will be looking into a more comprehensive plan for Hannah in the future, so perhaps that's something, safety and security of pedestrians is something we can incorporate into.
Councilor Razor now.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, the Matt, I know you're wanting to close off access from Plank Line. What is your plan of doing that? Like, are you putting up cement? Because that's gonna, the cutouts are already in the.
yes,
So
yeah.
it's gonna be a natural thing for local people to just
I
want.
think at the beginning, I'm gonna have to do something a little height to it and, more visibility, so. We talked about different things, we talked about the big cement blocks, but like you said, I don't really want something that people are going to hit. So I'm not too sure if I'll have to put in some sort of, temporary fence for the time being with, I'm not too sure, I was thinking maybe something along the line of rope and a lot of flags. I'm hoping that people will pay a little more attention, but, I can't speak on behalf of the public sometimes, so.
No, that's fine. Thank you.
That's the hope, just to go that route.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Checking the area. I guess I've got a couple. The first one is, glad to see, expanded uses and more services in the village for sure. Originally, at one point, I think it was a hardware store in
Yeah, it hasn't changed much.
and servicing for trucks years ago.
Yes, yeah,
None of that's, basically storage of stuff right now, I think.
yeah, really after my grandfather went to their retirement home, we just closed the doors. So nothing has really been done in that facility for over 10 years now. It would be nice to clean it up and get some use out of it. It's a large space. So we feel this is gonna be the simplest way to start off and see where it grows from there. I'm optimistic this will work. I'd like to see, who knows what will take place in there in the future. We're always open for ideas.
Good, because, with the, personally, I'd like to see it grow too, right, so, second of all, it says ice cream, walk up ice cream. I'm wondering, would that be ice cream plus, say, pop or donuts, or how far do you stretch ice cream? I can stretch it long ways. So, because what I wanna do is not have a situation where, you can sell potato chips, but you can't sell donuts sort of thing, right?
Right.
And that's where, I don't know whether Laurel, you wanna comment, or Matt, whether you wanna comment.
Through you, Mayor Mayberry. The definition of eating establishment does not prevent selling of certain types of food. And it doesn't say they only have to sell ice cream. The limits in the proposed bylaw are for eating establishment and of a certain size.
Okay, good. And then the impact, the food truck will stay?
Yes. Yeah, we're hoping that the ice cream shop will A company called Food Truck, yes. I feel they're a good mix.
And currently, when people go to the food truck, they tend to pull off, plank right to the food truck, right?
Yes. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, we're really trying to limit the access that's on the paved portion up by the island. I'm not too sure if we're gonna have to, further down the line, eliminate the access down there as well. Again, as Mr. Wade said there too, it can be a bit of an issue, just notifying the public not to be turning in there, so we're gonna start off small and see where we go from there.
okay, and then the other question I had was, currently the building is not connected to sewers,
No, it's not.
they're connected to water,
Yes, it is.
and the upstairs of the building is 4 apartments, or?
Well, there is potential for 4 apartments, yes. Right now, it's our
I
office.
encourage you to.
It's a different zone change again to do apartments,
Yeah.
and it's a cost that I don't think
Yep.
we're equipped to take. This is why we haven't hooked up to the septic as well, it's just, it's a large cost, and being in that parking lot, it'll take a lot to put a tank in and then make that parking lot a parking lot again, so. We're hoping by starting off like this, in the future, if things go well, we can develop it into stores and apartments, but, that's all comes down to, how things go at the beginning, right?
Yep, okay, and as Laurel mentioned a minute or two ago, that, the township is interested in doing kind of a secondary plan to sort of say what could, the downtown of Mount look like. And, obviously, be part of that conversation, so.
Beautiful, I hope to see that building there for years to come.
Okay.
Maybe not blue, but, you know.
All right, any further questions or comments? Councillor White?
One further question to you, Mr. Mayor. Would there be any thoughts of moving the food truck to a different spot to make it
Possibly.
that parking area? I mean, right now, food trucks have pretty good access for visibility.
Yeah.
For stopping, right? And if you move it around the corner, that might.
Our only concern is how close it gets to the house if they're in the corner.
You know, but anyways, it's fine.
Yeah, no, it would be nice, and I'm hoping that again, that she'll stay there for years to come, but it's hard to say as well, she may even. In a couple years from now, decide she doesn't want to do that anymore and they'll do something else, so.
And Councillor Thurston, you have a question?
I do have a question, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Matt, whereabouts would the window be for the ice cream? And as you can tell, I'm interested in buying ice cream.
So, right now, the window will be on the south corner of it. There's a little window there that I used to look out, so that's the one, and then 2 great big front windows. We would like to eliminate the one. We've been speaking to Kelly McLaughlin from Shaw's, and she really recommends having 2 windows. So we're gonna see if we can renovate that front corner into a window, obviously an appropriate size one. And that way we'd have those 2 on that corner, again, which is why we wanna eliminate the access, that's a fairly big corner that I don't want anybody racing through, because I'm hoping there'll be lots of people standing there, getting their ice cream served quickly.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions?
I don't have a question, but I
Okay.
would like to move to approve. If we're there again.
We gotta go to the public meeting. but
All right.
Well, any other questions or comments? Checking online here. Then we need a motion to rise from public meeting, moved by Geller, second by Way. Council Rising, you're back in the council, from public meeting. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed, that's carried, and Councilor Harrison, the motion is.
To approve. Is over.
Seconder. Councilor White. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed, that's carried. Now, does this one have a, yes, it does.
Same thing, we'll send the notice out tomorrow, and then there is a 20-day appeal period, but nobody has provided comment. And is it only the township and applicant can appeal for this too?
The applicant or, there is a list of specified persons that it's on the application form, but I can clarify that.
Okay.
So more likely, nobody's gonna appeal ice cream.
I hope not.
This time of year, maybe. Okay, we did a little bit. Yes, we did, okay. So that's the process, you'll get a notice, saying that the appeal period is over.
Okay.
Okay, and then you're welcome to come in and get whatever building permit you need for, any renovation.
Very good.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Council.
Next application is, for Whatever developments, are properly located at 324032 and 324056 Whatever Road. Do you have a motion to go into public meeting by Booker, second by Gillis? Councilor, I go into public meeting, to deal with this issue, any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed, that's carried. Brian, you're next, come on up to the table. We know the process, this is a modification or amendment to the, previous, plan, so Laurel, go ahead, please.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Mayberry, members of council, members of the audience and staff. The intent of the zone change application and request to modify the draft approved plan of subdivision is to enlarge the park block in the northwest corner of the subdivision, which you can see is the upper left on your map, on the map on the screen there. Modify the boundary of the stormwater management pond, which is just below the park block, and allow for future development of 2 blocks for municipal use by the township. So rezoning them to industrial, special institutional zone. In terms of circulation, we issued the notice of complete application on December 18th, 2024. The public notice was sent out on January 15th, 2025. We did not receive any concerns or questions, and no issues have been identified. In terms of the official plan, the area is designated low density residential. There are a number of parcels that are part of this application. So there are a number of zones that are currently in fact special type 1 residential holding zone, residential type 1 holding zone, and open space zone. So I'd like to look at the map. It might be an easier way to explain what the application is about. So the 2 blocks on sort of top right of the map, the proposal is to rezone those two to proposed special institutional zone to facilitate future development for municipal uses. The reason those are being proposed as special institutional zone is one of them is doesn't meet the size criteria for an institutional zone block. So it has to be we have to make ask for relief for that size. The other one is a special institutional zone because if it is used for a parking lot, a standalone parking lot is not a permitted use in the institutional zone. So again, that would have to be a special institutional zone. On the left, far left, the park block, the one parcel there is being added to the park block to enlarge the park block, and that is being proposed to be rezoned to recreational zone. The stormwater management pond below, we're proposing to rezone that to open space zone. It's currently special residential zone. Open space zone is the zone that is consistent with what is in the zoning bylaw. That's what we zone stormwater management blocks. And also through the draft approval stage, the walkway block has been shifted from beside the stormwater management block to down below. It's new lot 141. So in order for that to be developed for residential purposes, it has to be zoned to residential from open space. So as I said, there are a lot of small pieces of this puzzle. Essentially, we're trying to make everything consistent with the zoning bylaw, enlarge the park block, ensure that the open space, the stormwater management is zoned properly, and allow for future development for municipal uses on the special institutional zones. This proposal is consistent with the intent of the provincial policy statement with respect to achieving complete communities. Again, making settlement areas the focus of growth and including a mix of land uses in settlement areas. So in this case, parkland, stormwater management facility, institutional uses, and residential uses. It's consistent with the intent and purpose of the official plan regarding permitting municipal services and parkland within low density areas. And in terms of the zoning bylaw, blocks 161 to 162 are proposed to be rezoned to special institutional to prevent future municipal uses. Staff are satisfied that this rezoning is compatible with surrounding land uses in the area. I'd also like to note that site plan control will apply to the development of these institutional blocks to ensure compatibility, access, appropriate integration of uses and other items. So site plan criteria will be looked at, including and evaluated prior to finalizing the design and will include items like lighting, parking, loading areas, landscaping, drainage, and integration with the surrounding residential uses. Rezoning the parcel to the east of Park Block 163 to recreational zone to increase the park block is compatible with the surrounding land uses and will more accurately reflect its proposed parkland use. So overall, planning staff are of the opinion that the proposed amendments to the draft approved plan of subdivision to increase the size of the park block, create 2 institutional blocks, and amend the boundaries of the stormwater management block can be supported. Staff are also of the opinion that the rezoning of the lands to recreational zone, special institutional zone, open space zone, and special residential type 1 holding zone be approved. And I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Any questions for clarification from council?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Clifford, please.
I didn't understand the explanation of lot 41. Proposed R1-16H zone. I'm still a little lost on that one.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Mayberry. That used to be, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that used to be the walkway. And through the process, that is now a new residential lot. If it was still zoned to be the walkway, it would be open space. So it's currently zoned open space, which would not allow for residential development, but now it's a new residential lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions, clarification? Seeing none, Brian, any comments you want?
Good morning, Mr. Mayor, council, and staff. Well, we're in agreement with planner Laurel Davy Snyder and her review of plan and very thankful for helping clean up some of these little inconsistencies that were left from the earlier review. So we have nothing to add to it except thank you very much for your help.
My pleasure.
Okay. Anyone in the public want to speak in favor of the application? Anyone in the public want to speak opposed to the application? Seeing none, back to council for comments and questions. So, Councilor Gilbert.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, just a comment that it seems like just cleaning up some zoning here and making it look right, and I have no objection to this report.
Okay. Any others? Seeing none, need motion to go out of the public meeting, so moved by first and second by Gillis. The rest of the public meeting, any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, that's carried. And now a decision moved by Gillis, seconded by Bugner, and to approve. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, that's carried. This one doesn't kind of feel clear. But it was residential.
It does still have, it's the same applies.
Okay. So, don't appeal. Any discussion? Oh, sorry, that's it. Anything you want to know, Brian?
No, I was.
Okay. Notice of vote tomorrow?
Yeah.
Okay. And that deals with that one, and, see, we're down to 45, good. The next application is for Alan and Elizabeth Miller. Do you want to come up to the table? And, for zone change 424. Same processes we've been through before, so, we need to move to public meeting, you're right. Motion moved by White, seconded by Gillis. We're going to public meeting with the zone change application 42419. Any discussion? Being none, all in favor?
Aye.
That's carried. Now back in the public meeting, same process, Laurel, please.
Thank you, Mayor Mayberry, members of council, members of the public and staff. The proposal is to amend the existing special general agricultural zone A233. The owners are proposing to amend the existing zone to allow the operation of the existing home-based business, the sawmill, from 10 to 12 months of the year, so year-round. The property is just over 40 hectares in size, 99 acres, with frontage on Prowse Road. Prowse Road is a weight restricted road. Bylaw 1482 states that commercial motor vehicles with weights of over 5,000 kilograms on an axle are prohibited from using weight restricted roads during March and April of each year. This is considered the reduced load period. And this is when dirt and gravel roads are very soft due to spring thaw or melt and can be easily damaged by these heavy vehicles. And that's why the reduced load period and that bylaw is in effect. In terms of a bit of history, the applicant submitted a zone change application in 2020 to permit a sawmill as a home occupation to recognize the existing 2,000 square foot sawmill operating within a 10,000 square foot barn. At that time, township staff did identify concerns with locating on a sawmill on a weight restricted road and noted that the use of Prowse Road by vehicles required for the operation of the sawmill during March and April would likely result in damage to road infrastructure. So to manage this concern, to mitigate any potential damage and associated cost of the repair and damage of the road, the current bylaw, so the implementing bylaw from that 2020 application, contains a provision that prohibits the use of the sawmill between March 1st and April 30th each year, and prohibits motor vehicles and commercial vehicles associated with the sawmill use during this time period. So at that time, staff saw that as a reasonable way to permit the home-based occupation, the sawmill, and also regulate heavy vehicles on Prowse Road. In terms of this application, the notice of complete application was sent out December 17th, and the notice of public meeting, the public notice was sent out on January 15th, 2025. So as part of the process, I received comments from different agencies and different departments. In this case, township staff again reiterated their original concerns regarding using Prowse Road during the weight restricted period and identified that if damage were to occur, the cost to repair the damage would be the responsibility of the township and by extension to its taxpayers. That was the only concern that was received. In terms of our analysis from the planning department, the official plan does support opportunity for creating and establishing rural home-based home occupations subject to a number of criteria. One of the criteria, policy 3.1.3.3.1, requires that existing or proposed services, including road access, are adequate to serve the use to the satisfaction of the municipality or the county. A road would be one of these criteria, road access. As Prowse Road is a weight restricted road, using it during March and April each year may result in damage to the township road infrastructure. It is not considered adequate to serve the sawmill during March and April. The intent of the original zone change in 2020 was to recognize an existing situation and identify that the sawmill was a secondary use to the primary agricultural use of the property. So given this, and that the location of the property is on a weight restricted road, planning staff are of the opinion that prohibiting the sawmill from operating in March and April is still reasonable, and that the application to amend the existing zoning be denied. Planning staff don't feel that approving the application is consistent with bylaw 1482, which governs weight restricted roads. And approving it could set a precedent for the use of weight restricted roads in the township during the reduced load period, potentially causing damage and incurring unanticipated costs to the township and its taxpayers. Staff is of the opinion that the existing zoning should remain in place, as it provides the applicants with the opportunity to operate a viable and oversized secondary use on a property, and provides the township and its taxpayers with a level of protection regarding costs associated with repairing potential damage to municipal roads. I'd be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for clarification?
Yes, Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead, Councilor Clifford.
through you. I'd like a clear explanation of the existing operation and how it's zoned. So is this a farm and the sawmill is a subsequent operation or secondary nature in operation? Or is this a commercial sawmill as the primary operation and farming is secondary? So how is that resolved in the current zoning definition?
Through you, Mayor Mayberry, in 2020, the decision was to deem the sawmill use as a secondary, well, as a home-based business, home occupation. Home occupations by definition are secondary to the primary use of the property. This is an agricultural property, so the primary use is still agriculture. This was deemed to be a home occupation. Granted, it is an oversized home occupation, but the implementing bylaw did grant approval for that size of home occupation on this property. And home occupations are permitted in agricultural zones.
But it has to be secondary in nature.
A home occupation, yes, is always secondary to the primary use,
So
which is agriculture in this case, yes.
through you, Mr. Mayor. So how can we establish which is the primary occupation and the secondary, and if we have not had access to any kind of financial statements or anything like that?
That term is secondary.
Through you, Mayor Mayberry, the second, because home occupations are permitted, governed by size, by definition, that is a secondary use. The use does not, the nature of being a secondary use isn't
It's not measured.
it's not measured by financial profit. It's
Okay.
the size of the use permitted on the property, because it is the bylaw defines how much space can be used for the sawmill. And because the bylaw says this is a permitted home occupations are secondary, that's how it's defined, is by the size.
Okay, thank you. I thought maybe it was income, but that's fine.
Thank you.
Any other questions for clarification? Not seeing any, yeah, anything you want to comment? Go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Yeah, I don't have a lot to say that you probably don't know. I've talked to you after this thing has come up and said this is really a problem. I know I'm a small operation and don't seem that important to you, but it's important to my family. And right now, it's I have only 3 boys, and the last one's coming out of school this year. And I don't know if this is something that will keep carrying on, but for at the moment, they all have interest in it, and it's really important to us to keep the farm alive. And like I mentioned to a couple of them, if I have no work for them at home, they're gonna work out, and that's gonna, I milk goats. And that's gonna affect me on how many goats I can milk, because now I don't have my boys at home to help me do the chores. And yeah, I forgot to mention, this is my father-in-law. He's got concerns about my business as well. He knows the financials that I will need to pay for the farm. And I don't know, will he have any gumption to hump his horn, but this is my neighbor Arnold DeBoer. I asked him if he would come along just in case there was any questions. And Ray Baxter, he's the lumber buyer, so.
I have a couple comments to make. One, as far as the sawmill is concerned, the building was built in 2012. And there was a sawmill put in that building. Now, that sawmill was allowed to operate 12 months a year. And now that Mr. Miller's operating, it's got to be cut back to 10 for some reason, and I guess it's the road. And as far as the roads go, Crouch Road is head and shoulders above Daniel Line and Zenda. And there's a sawmill on each one of those that produces 10 times the lumber that Mr. Miller produces. They're allowed to operate 12 months a year. And just west of John Chapman's mill on Daniel Road, there's a soft spot every spring. On Zenda line, south of Father's Mill, there's a soft spot. There's none whatsoever on Brush Road. It's head and shoulders above those two roads. So I don't see why Mr. Miller can't operate 12 months a year.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that, yeah, this thing has gotten labeled kind of the other way when as soon as, yeah, it was just last week when I got the papers, I talked to, the planner. And, yeah, she talked like she would come out, but it was too short, so I didn't get a chance to actually talk to her about my situation. So, yeah, that's, go ahead, if you got something to say.
Yeah, okay, I was just wondering, you were concerned about the road, that's well, to have road season, don't that help things out there? Like from March to the end of April? For as far as the road conditions, wouldn't that take care of, the stuff, your pressure on the road, right? Too many paper roads, but have road season would take care of that, wouldn't it?
If people actually follow it, and if they use trucks that have less than 5,000 kilograms per axle, which they don't. So, we have two issues there to start with.
I had two of them wait last week. Mr. Mayor, a Kenilworth on the front axle with an empty trailer on was $39.95 kilos. I had a Peterbilt weight that had a sleeper cab on it, an empty set of B trains on behind, and he was 3,800 kilos. And either one of the people that I talked to are worried about overload. They can legally haul 5,000 kilos of grass.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Mr. Miller?
I've got one more here, if you don't mind. There was supposed to be another additive in this meeting today, and it's not in here, and I don't know if you want us to come back. And that was the deletion of the set fine agreement. And there's nothing in here about it.
That has nothing to do with planning, so we're here for planning today.
Okay,
So,
that's fine.
Anything else? If anyone in the public wants to speak in favor of the application? Go ahead, Mr. Gore.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I just have one comment. Mr. Miller, he obeys the laws of tackle season. There's no trucks going into his property in March and April. And he hires us to stockpile his scrap pieces, so he saves them all up till after the half load season, and then we load them up, and then they get shipped off. So there's no trucks associated with his mill going on the roads, and he's always obeyed that law.
Any other comments in favor? Any comments opposed? Seeing none, back to council. Councilor Webb.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. I read this report, and this is one I struggled with all weekend. I like to be supportive of business, residents in the township to have businesses and to thrive. And I do realize it's on a half load road, I get that. When I look at the rest of the township, we have lots of businesses on half road loads. And I'm not sure if we're asking them not to run their business as a chicken farm or as a beef business or a pork business because of overweight trucks bringing feed in and taking product out. I mean, my guess is there's trucks going up and down these roads and they're overweight. I mean, we can't be everywhere at once. And I just don't think it's fair to Mr. Miller that we tell him, since he's on a halfway load road, that he can only operate 10 months of the year where we have other businesses on roads that are the same classification, they're half weight. And are we asking them not to operate? Or are we just kind of hoping that they don't damage the roads? I just don't know if it's fair. You're not picking on, but we've got one business that we say, no, you can't operate 12 months of the year. And we have other businesses on the same situation. And maybe it's not a second business on the property, but they're a business on a weight related road. And I don't think we're asking them to bring in or stop their production for 2 months. And I just don't think it's fair.
Anyone wants to say?
Okay, so from a legislative point of view, agricultural businesses are exempt from the weight restriction on half-load roads. Related to feed trucks, that type of thing. If there was
No, they're not exempt. Feed trucks are not exempt.
feed trucks aren't? Okay, sorry.
Milk trucks?
Milk trucks, the only thing that has a full exemption is a commercial vehicle used exclusively for milk. There is an exemption for feed trucks if they have 2 axles, they're exempt to 7,500 kilograms per axle. But that's only if they have 2 axles. If they have more than 2, so more than a steer axle and a drive axle, then they're restricted back to the 5.
Go ahead.
Okay, so I'll just maybe touch on this. The sawmills that are currently operating without this restriction. The municipalities learned a lot about the damage that can occur on roads when businesses are carried out. The operation that was there in 2012 was not a legal operation as far as the zoning was concerned. It was in violation of the zoning. It wasn't until the property changed hands that we became aware and looked ahead on that. So the half-load restriction, allowing the business to operate a half-load restriction for those 2 months, allowed the business to continue except for those 2 months. And I think that there is a compromise or some type of that's been reached in regards to that. But I think we need to look at accurate information. The 2012 operation was not a legal zoning operation. So it's the reason that it's happened is because we've become aware of it and it's being appropriately zoned for the use. So that's all.
Okay, other questions, comments from council?
Question, Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Gillis and Councilor Gilmore.
Mr. Mayor, through you, I kind of with Councilor Wade, kind of seen this both sides of it. I understand it at the time when it came to council, why a restriction was put on this place to have another way to protect our roads because there had been some challenges. But at the same token, there are other businesses, not just in the local area, that do take advantage of our roads in times when they shouldn't. And I feel they should be fined even more than what we currently are if they're caught doing such a thing. At the same time, if I owned a business and was restricted seasonally when I could run it, I could see challenges with finding workers that want to work there on a regular basis and trying to keep things running. I wouldn't want to have somebody work for me and then then I have to say, well, for 2 months I gotta shut down, so and then please come back after 2 months. I could see that being a challenge. I don't really want to restrict a business from being able to operate all the time, whether it's the secondary business or not. I do see the challenges that we have, why that bylaw was in to protect our roads. But I think we need to punish the ones that affect our roads differently than restricting the business from being able to operate 10 months of the year.
Anyone else?
Question, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead.
Thank you. I have a number of questions, one for Adam and then a number of questions for the applicant. Adam, farm implements, are they restricted in terms of weight during the half load limit?
Not currently, just commercial motor vehicles restricted under the Highway Travel Act.
Okay, thank you. And then to the applicant, Mr. Miller, just trying to get a sense of your business a little bit. Can you give us some estimation as to how much output your business generates? Like how many board feet of lumber, or like how many trucks per week would you be able to fill if you're running at full capacity? And if you have any knowledge how that would compare to other mills that operate in the area?
Any of the numbers I have would be pretty straightforward. I just done my income taxes. I looked through all the paperwork, so there's 24 loads last year going out.
24 truckloads.
24 truckloads.
So that works out
I
to
think
one
if
every
you
other week.
compare that with a lot of farms, it's gonna be quite a bit smaller than a lot of farms are. Farmers are putting on the roads.
So that works out to one load every other week.
Yeah, roughly, yep.
So then in the time frame that we're talking about, March and April, we're talking about 4 truckloads. Would that be correct?
Yeah.
Okay,
Well,
my next question, the supplies that you require to run your mill, I assume it runs on diesel power?
yeah,
Are you able to stockpile enough fuel and enough lumber, enough logs on your property prior to the half load limit that you would be able to operate through the entire half load limit without having to bring in any additional supplies?
yes, I would. As far as logs go, I am no problem there. We got lots of logs. As far as fuel goes, some months it'll take me 2 months to get a tank drained, but if I do run short, I'm sure I got some neighbors, I can get some cherry cans and fill them up, but we can work around that.
So you would not require any additional supplies during the half load limit season that would require trucks to come into your property then?
No, not, I'm aware of right now. I can't, see that it's not something I could, look into before.
Okay. Next question. Do you know approximately what your distance would be to plank line from your place?
Blank line, that's, 19.
Yeah.
Okay,
That's correct.
that's, well, it's gotta be a mile. Is it that much?
I don't, it's 4 kilometers all the way across, so you'd be,
All the way across.
Yeah, but we're in the middle.
so it's going to be safe.
Yeah, it's no more.
And have you investigated any other options for moving product off your farm other than having trucks come into your yard? Have you looked at
Yep,
potentially
I
hiring
have.
neighbors, or?
Me and Mayberry have talked about that, and yeah, that's partly why I brought my neighbor along, Arnold DeBoer. He's very supportive of helping me out. So he's got a farm on Plank Line, or a piece of property. It's yeah, it's just a bunch of gravel and a little building there. It's for storage, and yeah, I guess he can comment on that if you got any questions.
Well, I'm just wondering whether it would be feasible to use a smaller farm type implement like a wagon and a tractor to haul smaller loads off of your property if need be, and assemble them on Plank Line and load them onto trucks from there where it is a full load road.
It's not something that we look forward to, but it would be something that would be a lot better than not knowing what to do in March and April. I mean, my part of it is, like, if I wanna keep selling lumber, I gotta keep my customer happy. And it's gonna put me out of business if he finds anybody that does it better.
Okay. One further comment, Mr. Mayor?
Go ahead.
The fact that this has been captured by the change in ownership of this farm, Mary Ellen commented earlier about that the sawmill was set up without proper zoning, so it was in violation of our bylaws. The fact that it is now zoned suggests that Mr. Miller has done his best to be able to comply with township zoning bylaws. I, like the other counselors that have spoken, I do not think that penalizing Mr. Miller for trying to follow the rules is the way to go here. He's trying to find alternatives to what might damage our roads. And once we get back into open session or whatever the proper term is, I would be willing to move approval of this zone change application.
Any other questions or comments from council?
I have a question or two, Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Pritchard, go ahead, please.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Miller, are you prepared to live within the rules and regulations of the half load restrictions in March and April? Are you prepared to follow those restrictions?
Absolutely.
Okay. Question for Adam. How many half load restriction fines were issued in Southwest Oxford last year?
I don't have that
Okay.
data with me. That would be something that come from the OPP. It is enforced by OPP. It was very little, nowhere near enough. We struggle with this, not just in Southwest Oxford, but countywide. It's an ongoing problem that we see not getting better, but getting worse throughout the whole county. So
Yeah, it's my recollection's poor on the stats, but it seems to me the number of fines was very low.
it is very low, yes.
Anything further, Councilor Pritchard?
I guess the thing that's in the back of my mind that bothers me the most is the sessions we had on this zone change in 2020, where Mr. Miller agreed with this zone change. And it really bothers me that it's kind of like I got my foot in the door, now I'll come back and get the rest of it. And I'm struggling with that. So maybe Mr. Miller should comment and just clear my mind a little bit as to why you agreed to this zone change in 2020, and since that time you have not. So what's happened?
Okay, that was at that time, there was, I was working for, Oxford Pallet, and you probably know there was COVID going on, and there was Stephen was his name. He says he would look after it. And so he went in the meeting, and actually I called in just a little bit before, I says I should go along. Okay, so then I says, no, she said it was COVID, I would have to book in longer because it wouldn't be allowed as many people, so I wasn't even in the meeting. So in the evening, he comes out to me, that was Oxford Pallet, one of the workers. And he says, I got 10 months of the year for you. And I looked at him. And I says, are you gonna be buying lumber from me 10 months of the year? Well, if I signed that, I can't even work. He says, no. But this was all I was gonna get. Well, I says, well, I guess it's up to you. If you were able to keep me busy 10 months of the year. But what happened? They found something better. So I don't even cut for them anymore. Like if somebody was to support me 10 months of the year, it would be a different story. That's the biggest thing.
Well, as I say, that's kind of what's in the back of my mind is, how did we get to this point when you agreed to this in 2020?
I guess I didn't know any better, like I didn't know what else, you know, he said this is the only way, like I was kind of forced into it, right?
So you're saying that you were kind of pressured to accept this zone change?
Well, he said this was the only way I was going to be able to operate a sawmill.
Okay.
That was Steve, right? The one that was in here from Oxford Pallet.
Okay, Julie, your comment or view?
Yeah, I just want to comment and really emphasize that related to this application, if this is approved, right now, this is our only way to enforce this. So if this is approved, we will not be able to enforce this going forward. If the business grows, if the property ownership changes in the future, we will not be able to change this. The only thing we'll be able to do is potentially contact OPP and ask for enforcement for the weight restriction period. We don't get a lot of response on that in the past. If there's damage done to the road, it will be up to the township and township dollars to pay for to fix. I just want to make sure that that's clear.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Seeing none. Councilor Gittman, did you want to ask?
Well, my recollection, to Councilor Pickard's point, my recollection of the discussions around this in 2020 was it was an all or nothing kind of an approach where Mr. Miller either accepted the 10 months a year or he didn't get to operate any months of the year. And so it's at that time was the case of lesser of two evils. And I don't know whether there's any kind of document that we could ask Mr. Miller to sign that would somewhat guarantee that he would play by the rules. He's already said that he has. He's demonstrated that he's trying to. I don't think penalizing one person for the action of somebody else is the way to go.
Any further comments? Adam, do you want to comment?
No, my comments haven't changed from the original zone change. I think it was staff's recommendation back in 2020 not to approve this at all, and it was council's decision to grant the 10 months of the year to try and help them out. But no, my opinion has not changed on this at all. It's still
Okay. No further comments? And then the motion to rise from the public meeting. Moved by Way, seconded by Brookner. Any discussion? Being none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried, and the motion would be.
Motion to approve, Mr. Mayor.
You have a seconder? Seconded by Gillis. Any discussion? Being none, I share the concerns of Public Works that while we already have a problem, I always figure it's probably not a good idea to make it any worse. On the other hand, the idea of not supporting business and wanting to grow when they can in fact live by the rules if they choose to. I would agree that we shouldn't be penalizing them. Having said that, at the last time we had this discussion, Mr. Baxter said, well, what if we only did one load a month or something out of that instead of two? And that always bothered me that, well, what if we just, play unfair a little bit, not too much? So I agree with staff. I think the biggest problem is that we're never going to be able to enforce half load. And that bothers me because everybody in the council pays for that. Councilor Pickard, Councilor Gittman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just in relation to your comment, that was Mr. Baxter's comment, not Mr. Miller's comment. So we have to be clear about that distinction.
Okay, anything further?
Yeah, if we're legal, what difference does it make how many loads we share? All the trucks have gauges on them. Mr. Kraus is welcome to come and read them.
I guess then that would require the truck calling, making an arrangement for someone to come and read them every single time.
That's fine.
At their expense, so. Anyway, not part of the debate right now. We have a motion on the floor. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
That carried 4-3. Again, the same photo list before, be mailed out, mailed out tomorrow, and be open here for 20
It will
days?
be noted that we don't have,
Oh,
we don't have the amending bylaw, it will come back to the next meeting.
okay, well, so then it'll be mailed out after that, so, it's February, the next meeting, it's still going by the 1st of March, so they're close to it anyway. Right?
Yeah.
Okay,
Thank you.
Councilor Booker, you wanted a quick
Recess.
we've got a meeting at 11 o'clock, and it's 11:24. You want a quick recess?
Mr. Mayor, can I ask you one more question? Do we still have to deal with Mr. Miller being able to work in March and April?
Once the bylaw is passed, you don't have to.
We don't have to, he's allowed to work?
Yeah.
Thank you,
It'll be trucking, that'll be the problem.
thank you.
Okay, and we're having a 2-minute recess. The next item is the drain report for the Dixon drain. Like to hear your consideration of the engineer's report.
Yes. Like me to start?
Go ahead, please. Okay, we're ready.
Yes, this report before you was prepared in accordance with section 78 of the Drainage Act, which is required improvement to an existing municipal drain. The Vincent Drain is an open channel, that starts, a certain distance north of Brownsville Road and then heads southerly through private lands, crossing Brownsville Road and continuing downstream and eventually, crossing Ford Line. The landowners or landowner in question asked for comparative improvement. There was issues with erosion to the banks, with erosion at a retaining wall that was built outside of the Drainage Act. There's also an older culvert and trees and a number of things that were causing issues for the drain, and it was asked that it would be improved. We did look and investigate several alternatives. Municipality staff looked into several alternatives, and through discussions, it was decided to improve the channel and have a short section of retaining wall when finished. The municipality temporarily repaired the wall. The wall was constructed privately, both by the municipality and also by landowners in the past. So it was felt from a safety point of view that some temporary measures needed to be done. We would be utilizing some of the stone blocks that are there that were part of the retaining wall to create the short section of wall, but the major portion of this improvement relies on shifting the channel. Once you get in the northerly half of the property, the channel will be shifted westerly to get away from the building that's on the east side of the channel. And then not having the requirement of a vertical wall closer to the buildings. There will be a new culvert installed to replace the crossings that are there. Currently, there are multiple pipes and structures that go underneath the laneway. There are at least 3 municipal drains and other private drains that all come down to that point and outlet into this drain. Some of them outlet on the south side of the laneway. And there's still, in a big rain event, most of the water would be surface water. So a new culvert crossing the laneway and outletting all of the pipes on the upstream end of the culvert was what we felt was the best solution. Again, there was alternatives that were considered for different types of construction of a culvert. But a pipe culvert set deeper was what our recommendations ended up being. There has been some clearing and some work done in terms of maintenance already. And some of that work is included as part of the cost of this report. So we've taken the work that's been done and included it in this. There's been a number of meetings held, preliminary meetings with landowners and the watershed. And so we've taken the feedback that we've received and tried to incorporate the best to our ability in this report to satisfy everybody. And at that point, I stop and look at the questions.
Okay, any questions on this report? Seems like a relatively short piece for a fairly high dollar price, so. Okay.
Yes, it is. It's a tight space. There's a number of issues. There's a lot that's there now. We have to work in a tight space and protect it. There's quite a bit of fall. So the water's moving quite fast as it goes through the property. And then because it's urban and there's buildings and things like that, we need to protect that. Not just have a trapezoidal ditch for farm usage like around the farm. So as part of this report, we've had to identify the different components. So you have your culvert, you have erosion control works, you have ditch maintenance, like any ditch would have in a rural area. And then so we've had to take all of that and look at them independently and assess the cost to the landowners independently on sections. So that was all looked at and identified as part of it. If we could make it cheaper, we would love to make it cheaper, but unfortunately, this is sort of where we're at. One thing needed to add is that there was some discussion potentially because of the repairs that were done by the municipality of delaying part of the work for a future date. But the repairs that were done were not engineered and they are considered temporary in nature. And to avoid being in this situation again in the future, it was decided to do the repair complete at this point and not try to phase the project.
Okay. So, any questions from council?
Question, Mr. Mayor?
Councilor Gillis and Councilor Yipman?
Yes, thanks. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Just a question, like further down the channel after these improvements are made, like there is enough capacity further down, being able to handle all that water flow without any other upgrades further down the drain?
The channel itself, is fairly wide. It does grow with grass, tall grass, and the tall grass will, restrict the water, make the water rise, to some degree. But it's not as, any worse than the area that we're at, and it is going downhill at a fairly good pace. There is grade here. We are widening the channel from the culvert at Brownsville Road up to where the buildings and the pedestrian bridge is, because the ground in that area, especially on the west side, is lower. So it was a specific request to widen the channel in that area to keep the water levels down. Once you go downstream of that, the ditch keeps falling, but the water levels won't fall at the same pace. So is there potential for requirement of future improvements? Possibly. But at this point, the calculations don't show that it's necessary.
Councilor Yipman, you're next.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Did I hear correctly that you said that in the future there will not be the need for a retaining wall on the east side of the waterway?
For most of it, there is a stretch where we are taking the blocks that are there and rebuilding a stretch, and that would be beside the southerly building on the east side. The building further north, the channel is being shifted westerly away from that. So there will be a trapezoidal channel shifted away to alleviate the need of that wall.
Okay, and then secondary question, at the base of the channel, I noticed that you're using some of the blocks to create weirs in there. Is that to slow the water flow?
Yes, when water starts to flow in grades of approaching 0.75% to 1%, the water is moving fast enough that it can cause erosion in the channel. And so to prevent the large forces of the fast moving water, we do create steps to try and slow the water down. In a really large rain event, when the channel is completely full, they won't have as much of an effect as a medium-sized storm, because they're relatively close together. In a perfect world, I'd love to have those steps a little bit farther apart, a little larger. But we were dealing with a situation where we were not a long length and we had a fair amount of draw. And we do see erosion in the bottom of the channel. That channel is trying to cut itself deeper. So the steps is A, utilizing the existing blocks that are already there, and B, trying to slow the water down as much as we can.
Last question, Mr. Mayor.
Good.
Thank you. Is there any potential for these weirs to become in effect low head dams? There's a fair amount of safety concern around low head dams. Is there any potential for that to happen in this situation?
Not quite sure what you're referring to when you say low head dams.
A number of communities have steps in their water flow such that it creates a whirlpool effect on the downside, on the downstream side of the dam. and has potential for strong undertows and that sort of thing. Are we ever going to get into a water flow situation in this area where it might be a danger to small children or anything like that?
I would suggest that this channel flowing half full would be a danger to children and that that area should be avoided after or during a large rain event, regardless of whether the steps are there. There's enough water and there's enough movement in that water. The velocities are high enough that it would definitely be a concern. I wouldn't want to suggest that people should be around that channel. The conservation authorities do put out warnings to people after large rain events on water courses to avoid being around water courses that are flowing with a fair amount of water in them. The only step that you could take further than this would be to fence off the entire channel. That would be the only other protection that you could provide. There is a fence being reestablished that's already there on one part of it, but the whole channel is not fenced now and was not asked to be fenced as part of this.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, so does anyone in the public want to ask any questions on this dam or on this drain? Any concern? Go ahead, sir, state your name and
Warner Taylor. I live in Brownsville. And I was wondering, how do you derive at the price a person pays?
go ahead, Mark.
Yes.
I wasn't able to hear it, cause I need hearing aid.
Okay, I'll sort of point sideways so everybody can hear it, I'll speak up. We have to, because this is this drain has a different components in it. There's erosion concerns. There is ditch maintenance, like all ditches have in the community in the township.
That's not the question I asked. The question I asked was, how do you derive at what
And this
individual pay?
This is part of that. So because these components are different, we separate the costs into, in this case, we did it into 4 segments. We had the erosion work, we had the culvert work, we had the ditch work that would be required regardless, and then we had the additional work because it's an urban area that's close to buildings. So there's 4 pieces. We separated the cost into 4 pieces and we analyzed each piece separately because each piece needs to be addressed with a different amount of benefit to the lands as we go through. The Drainage Act instructs me as the engineer to charge a certain amount of the cost as benefit and the remainder of the cost as outlet. Benefit is in a better increased protection against water, increased capacity, increased land value, better crop production, better aesthetics. There's a list of things that are defined in the act. And so when we look at it, that's happening in this case to the lands where the work is happening or close to it. So we separate out that and it's done by proportion. We take a certain proportion of the cost, assess it as benefit. The remainder of the cost that's left over is assessed as outlet. Outlet is defined in the act as the volume of water that each property will send into the drain. The biggest factor in that is how big the property is. The more area you have, the more water you're going to generate. But it does get impacted by the type of land use. So if you're a farmer's field, that's considered standard because it's in a big agricultural area. If there's bush lots tend to hold more water than what a farmer's field would, so you would reduce bush lots. Residential properties, commercial properties, or roads have more hard surface, so they'll generate more water on a per acre basis than what a farm field would, so they're increased. So you take the area and adjust it up or down, and then distribute that total outlet over that area.
Does the storm sewer, in say Brownsville, for example, does the storm sewer have anything to do with this drain?
It does in the fact that it does take some of the water away. It takes some of the water that's coming down the flowing line.
No, I mean in the storm sewer itself, sir. The water that runs into the storm sewer, water running in there, does it run out? If what you're saying is true, it runs out of the storm sewer, which is supposed to go to an exit point, correct?
It does go to an exit point.
Right.
The storm sewer system I think you're referring to is the county built a storm sewer along the line. And they have some catch basins along the way.
Right.
North of Grover Street. And so the idea of that drain is to collect water, put it in, fill that pipe up and take some of the water south away from the Vincent drain, down to the intersection. It turns west and goes westerly and then turns in outlets on the downstream side of the culvert back into the Vincent drain. So all the water ends up in the same spot by the time it gets to the south side of Brownsville Road. But in the meantime, some of that water has been attempted to be put into a pipe and go around where this drain is to try to help. Some of the concerns that were raised, and we did walk around and looked, some of the surface inlets along that county road have been either removed or blocked and aren't working or clogged too frequently. We've made some suggestions to the county has acknowledged it and said that they would look into that to try and help make sure that that pipe can fill up and be utilized. But there are other pipes that are connected over to this that go from the loading line over, and also in a big rain event, surface water will overtop the curbs and go through an overflow runway that goes into the grassed area west and south to where this drain is.
So you keep track of that, you got a computer on that, know exactly how much it's going? So
Well, we use areas and we calculate the areas and the land use and we divide it up accordingly.
Cause I was wondering on here, the difference in people's property in town, they're charged at a different rate, so if everybody's got the same square footage, would they all be the same price?
Depends on the size of the property and how much hard
No.
surfaces they have.
You didn't listen to me. I said if the property size is all the same size, then would they, each one of those two properties or three properties, that's the same size square footage, would they all be charged the same?
Not necessarily.
What would be the difference? There's more rain in one spot than another.
Could be land use, could be the state of the property in terms of how much hard surface has been built on it. As a proportion, so one property may have 50% hard surface, one property may have 25% hard surface.
So if that property, the person takes that off their downspout, that water goes right into the main drain. Then that should be calculated as less. I just want to understand what we're going through.
Yeah, we don't necessarily say how the water is going to leave the property, we just calculate based on the use of the property, how much water they would generate, we assume that it's going to leave the property and potentially get into our drain.
You saying assume,
Correct.
so this is not necessarily correct, that's what actual usage is.
We're not taking measurements, but it is safe, in my view, to assume that if the water is being generated from the property, that water is getting to the drain. Whether it's by pipe or whether it's over top of the ground, it's going to leave the property unless they built some giant buried cistern that I don't know of. That's gonna capture all their water on the property, which you just don't see. I don't see that. If somebody has done it, by all means, they can let us know and we'll make an adjustment if it's.
Yeah, I was just kind of curious because I see the different prices on different people.
Yeah.
I was wondering how you derived them figures, and apparently you haven't told me exactly. But you say it runs in here and the size of the property, and you didn't say actually the size of the road. But I presume you're talking about the size of the road.
The roof, say you have driveways, patios, and anything that looks to be hard surface. And it's just done by proportion. Normally, a certain size property will have a certain amount of hard surface. Like if the one property is say twice the size of the other, and I'm talking about residential property here. The hard surface isn't going to necessarily be twice as much. They're not gonna have a building that takes up twice as much area just because they have a little bit bigger property. So the smaller the property, the more water per acre you would usually see, because the building, eventually, they don't trim the building anymore, it's just that there's less grass around it. So when you get some of the bigger residential properties that have more grass, the rate per acre goes down. That's typically what you see.
Good. Any other questions? Go ahead.
Yes, David Vander, I have land in Brownsville, farmland. And we use the Vincent Drain quite a bit, actually. So just with a follow-up to Warren's question there. As far as benefits, special benefits to the property in question, how is that calculated? Is that discretionary or is that formulary? And is that for debate as well in this?
It is calculated, it is somewhat discretionary, so. Like I said, it's done by proportion, we've identified the 4 pieces. And each piece has a separate proportion, or maybe some special benefits. There's some extra work being done in certain places for certain things where it was just directly assessed to one owner. But then other things, say for instance, the culvert work is a much higher benefit to the land owner than what the sort of ditch work. So it's done by proportion. That is done by accepted practice through the drainage industry. There are appeal bodies that would hear appeals. So ultimately, the court of revision, the next meeting, deals with the assessments. If somebody truly feels that their assessment is unfair at that point, they have the opportunity to appeal that assessment to the court of revision. Court of revision is done at a local level. And then the court of revision would listen to the reason why the landowner believes that the assessment is incorrect. And so you need to suggest where you think the money should go at that point. And then they would make an independent decision on my numbers. And then after that, if there's still a concern, you could appeal to the tribunal. And that's that body that I was saying, where over time, we've been guided by our predecessors. We've also been guided by decisions of the tribunal. So we know the decisions that come down and the judgments that get made in the previous cases have been challenged. So we do our best to be A, independent, and B, look at all the components that need to be in assessment independently.
So just to be clear, today, we're looking at the design of the drain. Is there any concerns with the design? Anything left out or should be added or whatever? At the court of revision, every person that pays into the court of revision, into the drain, has the opportunity to come and argue whether they think their assessment is too low or too high. But I would caution you that when you come to the court of revision, whoever sits on that court is, just because I don't want to pay that much, isn't a good enough excuse. You better have, or I would encourage you to have a specific reason as to why you think it was an error in judgment by the engineer, right? And hopefully if you would have contacted the engineer before that. But today we're looking at the design. Is there any concerns about the design and that part of the process? The court of revision is next month.
The first meeting of March.
First meeting in March, which will be about the 5th or 4th. And at that meeting, everybody will be invited back to appeal or, and remembering that if somebody else's goes down, yours automatically goes up. Right? The total amount of money is staying the same. It's just who's gonna pay for it. So, any further questions on the design of the drain? Go ahead.
My name is Bertha Wall. Most of the work on this property, on this drain will be done on, goes right through my property. I got that 2 years ago. I've been speaking a lot with Mike, who's very, into it, who's very educated on what he's doing here. Honestly, we're in good hands with it. I just want, I guess, maybe some reassurance on record that, with all this work being done, that there will be damage that will result as the work, there will be damage done to my property from the work that's being done or as a result of the plans changing. Mainly when it comes to structure or foundation or anything that's sitting close to the drain.
One comment on
Yeah,
that?
the only comment I could say, maybe just to, it's been said before, but I'll comment again. We do show limits of disturbance. We do show where the contractors would be working. So that particular area would be disturbed and then restored. So when it's restored, it's not gonna be exactly the way it was when we left it, but it is going to be, have topsoil and seed on it. You need to ensure the seed grows back. There's no warranty period for you know, to say that, you know, you need an absolute 100% catch by a month from now. We don't have watering in the contract in an urban area with the sod down. We will have a 30-day watering item for sod, but for seed, we don't typically do that. And also, it's much more expensive to try and get vehicles back in, and because it's seeded, access is an issue. If you were to try and seed it with equipment that would have a truck with a water tank on it to try and spray water on it, so it was much more A, cost efficient, and B, practical to try and let you make sure that that grass can catch in there. There's also, there's a shed in there that was talked about that would be removed by landowners, so that is now going to be gone, so we don't need to worry about that. And then, yes, you know, we'll be monitoring the building as we work here, and we should be no issue with that.
Okay, any other questions from, public on this drain? Go ahead, David.
Yeah, with regard to the drain, a significant portion to the north of the property in question. It was historically an open drain as well. We closed it in and put one of them style through there. It's now I was wondering why can't we do the same thing through this property? Was that considered?
We did consider possibly enclosing it. The pipe sizes would have had to been extremely large, because in this case, it's a number of drains that all come to one point. And because it's urban, the level of service is higher. So the size of rain event that you need to capture gets bigger. And so if we start trying to put pipes in, just the size of the pipe with the amount of earth on top puts us high enough that the excess doesn't have any room to flow. So it was considered, it's just not a practical solution in this case.
Any other questions on this drain? Daniel, any comments you want to make as drainage superintendent?
Nope.
You've seen the report, you're satisfied with it? Yep. And you're recommending that we adopt the report?
Yep.
Okay, back to council. Any other questions or comments? Did you want to ask about, does anybody want to add their name or remove it from the petition?
Yep.
Does anyone want to add or remove their name from the drainage petition? Seeing none, are we ready to move the report? So, I guess it's up to council. Are you ready to move the report? Do we have a mover or a seconder for this? Moved by Gillis. Moved by Gillis, seconded by Cracker. Any further, oh, sorry. The recommendation result of Council of Township Subcommittee to accept the report attached as appendix A to the report DDO 4/2025 prepared by Spring Associates and dated December 30th, 2024 regarding the municipal drainage in accordance with section 78 of the Drainage Act of 1990, chapter D, some reading further the council approves a bylaw in the form prescribed by the regulations for the Indian storage tax to a certain section meeting by the council, at which point the report shall be considered to be adopted and the bylaw should be known as the Vincent Drain 2024 provisional bylaw. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Yes.
Opposed? Carried. Okay, so that's it. Anyone's interested, we'll see you in a month's time for the quarter revision. Thanks very much for today. I think we're at BDO 2024 or 2025, and that is the. We've got a couple minutes. Julie, you want to do that? I think it's yours.
Yep, so I'll just do a brief introduction. This report is really just for council's information. We wanted to highlight to council that there are some changes that are coming or have come into place for the Ontario Building Code effective January 1st. Primarily the changes aim to align the Ontario Building Code with the National Building Code. However, there are some other changes which we tried to highlight within this report. I will note there are a lot of changes that are coming in, that have come into effect as of January 1st, but we tried to pull the changes that we think will affect development within the town the most. If there are any questions, I'm happy to try and answer them. Daniel is here as well, so he may be able to assist if there's something that I'm not too familiar with. Yeah, with that, we just wanted council to know that these are changes that have come into effect, from the provincial government. It's not something that we are implementing ourselves. And it will likely affect development within the township. You will see in the report, in relation to large farm buildings, there are some increased requirements, for fire safety, things like lighting, emergency exits, in addition to storage of pesticides, as well as ventilation requirements. But anyways, with that, I'll be happy to try to answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions from council on this report?
Just a quick question, is there still in the building code that new housing construction for garages have to put in cables for electric vehicles? Is that in the building code? Like, I've heard it is, and I've heard other people say, well, it's not, so I don't, is it or not part of the
It has
building
to be
code?
roughed in, I believe.
Is that, just has to be rough, just has to be
Yeah.
wired, but you don't have to put a plug in?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
correct, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, anything else? Then, motion is to receive the information, do I move in a second? Moved by Richardson, second by Wade, result, council Johnson, Cliff, the Crawford, report the 02/2025, the 2024 Ontario Building Code is information, any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, that's carried. I'm just wondering, maybe at the time, let's do the clerk's report. Township, procedural update, procedural bylaw update.
Okay, so, as outlined within the report, we haven't done a full review of the township's procedural bylaw for several years now. We have made some minor amendments as we moved along, particularly in relation to electronic participation at meetings. However, you will see that I've gone through and done a complete review of the township's procedural bylaw. I have highlighted all the changes that I'm proposing. I've tried to simplify a lot of the language throughout the bylaw. This does align with the township's accessibility requirements or accessibility plan. I've made some changes in relation to rules of debate, primarily in relation to the wording, for clarity and for ease of understanding of those sections. I've expanded on provisions related to delegations and public comments, and I've included, a process that somebody could register to come and address an item that's been posted on the council agenda. That was something that we have received some concerns about in the past. I've expanded rules in relation to electronic participation at voting. And I've also formalized the process that we would follow for appointing an alternate member to the upper tier council. That was a change to the municipal act over the last several years, but we hadn't really formalized that within our procedural bylaws, so that's included in there now. And I've also included provisions for submitting a notice of motion. This is something we didn't have in our procedural bylaw in the past. I'm actually not sure if there's any history on that or any reason for that, but it is something that's pretty common to have included, and an option for members of council to bring forward notices of motion. So I've included that as well. And then there's just been some minor adjustments in terms of administration, addressing some of the formatting and numbering and things like that. Today, I'm just presenting this to council primarily as information and for any comment. I'm not expecting that we will formally pass the bylaw today, but if there's any questions or comments that council may have, I'm happy to receive those.
Okay, thanks. Councilor Bickering first.
Julie, just for clarification, the ones that are lined through, they're being removed,
That will be removed, yes.
and the yellow ones are your updated ones.
Yes.
Okay.
Councilor Bills.
Question through you, Mr. Mayor, just for clarification on definitions, 2.2, composition of the advisory board. I know it says two counselors, up to two counselors. Is that because the mayor is classified as ex officio? Because I read that further down, but it didn't say it in that paragraph. So I just want to make sure that I think the total of 3, that way you're not a quorum of council, correct?
Right.
So I don't know whether that could be worded 3 in total, including the mayor, or whether 2 with us with the understanding that the mayor is classified as ex officio.
Yeah, we could reword that just so it's clear. Yeah.
Yeah, that was my only comment reading through.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Seeing none, you can ask just to receive his information. Right? Or you can bring a bylaw forward.
If there's any changes, we'll make the changes and then I'll bring the bylaw forward to the next meeting.
Okay, so any changes you want made? Fairly comprehensive and well done. Okay. So then, we have a recommendation and is see this information going forward. Moved by Gillis, seconded by Bookner. Result, Council of Town South Africa, report CL 8/2025 updated. Township South Africa procedural bylaw information for the council through the amended Township South Africa procedural bylaw. Adoption federal state staff for CL 2025. Any further discussion? None. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, that's carried. Wondering what time do they want to break for lunch?
Lunch is here now, and we have an appointment at 1.
So, let's skip number 8, we'll go to number 9 and 10, and then we'll go for lunch, right? 9 is the agenda items correspondence, any questions on 14 or 15, and we have a motion to notify. Moved by Brickner, second by Way to
Don't cloud.
any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
That's carried. And accounts payable number 10. The motion moved by Way, seconded by Gersten. Result, the following accounts to be approved payment accounts payable for January 19th to February 1st, 2025, $199,132. Payroll and general $6,517.27. Payroll 1 council $8,524.58. Fire $18,568.96, and police service support $626.06. In discussion for a total of $287,768.87. Councilor Gillis.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, just a question on the police services board, is that just for staff time, or that's the first time I've seen this on here, just to.
What's it for?
So the police services board, you're paying per diems to the group. For attending each meeting.
Okay.
And it will get invoiced out to.
Yes.
Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
That's carried. Okay, let's break for lunch. We'll come back to, well, let's see what, trying to get back to lunch, take half an hour. 30 minutes, all right, Councilor Prickard and everybody.
What are we having for lunch?
All right.
Oh.
Nice.
That's all downstairs. I'm looking forward.
I think it's gonna take a little more than 30 minutes to